So the Levine matter is not gonna be tonight.
Correct.
All right. We'll announce that at the beginning.
I'm popping out for a second. I got an issue with my computer.
Okay.
I'll be right back. You're gonna pop out now.
Good.
I'm here.
Background. Just waiting for Dave to come back. He was having an issue, so he was going to pop out and come back in, but I don't see him yet. All right, well,
Dave's not back yet.
he's not back in. All right, well, do you want to get started and we'll just let
Wait a
him
minute.
in?
Yeah.
Christine, I'm going to be doing some reading in the beginning, so could you just keep your eyes peeled for David Critelli?
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Call to order the Bradley Beach Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting for November 19th. Please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance.
I don't even have my flag up.
Pledge allegiance
The flag,
United States of America,
America,
to the republic
for which it
for which
stands,
it stands, one nation,
under God,
God,
indivisible.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Okay, the regular meeting of the Bradley Beach Zoning Board of Adjustment is now called to order. At this time, I would ask that everyone keep themselves muted until asked to speak, and please silence all cell phones or other paging devices or your house phones. They're very distracting and we're unable to hear the testimony. The 48-hour notice as required under the Open Public Meetings Act has been met, as notice of this meeting was emailed on November 2nd, 2020 and published in the Asbury Park Press, the Co-Star and the Coaster. A copy has been placed on the bulletin board in the borough office and a copy has been filed with the borough clerk. Mr. Affuso.
here.
Mr. Quinlan.
Here.
Mr. Wade.
Here.
Mr. Mayor.
Here.
Ms. Rosenberg. Here. Mr. Critelli.
Here.
Ms. Brunel.
Here.
And also present, Mark Hittrick, Attorney of the Board, Gerald Frieda, Board Engineer, and Christine Bell, our Board Planner. This regular meeting of the Bradley Beach Zoning Board of Adjustment, which has been duly constituted and advertised according to law, is called to order. It's the policy of the board to end all matters no later than 10 p.m. It's the board policy to adhere to the following procedure. After testimony by the applicant's attorney, their professional or proffered witness, questions will follow by members of the zoning board for that particular witness. After the members of the zoning board ask their questions, the zoning board professionals shall have the opportunity to ask questions. These questions by the members of the board and its professionals are directed to the applicant's witnesses may overlap. After the board members and board professionals have finished their questioning, the chairperson of the zoning board shall open the public portion session of the meeting for public to ask questions only of the witness currently testifying. This is not the time for public comment or opinion. Each member of the public who wishes to question this witness must make themselves known by raising their virtual hand or physical hand if you are participating with video. Please wait to be called upon by the chairperson before speaking. Each individual from the public must state their name, spell their last name, and state their address for the record, and you will have 1 5-minute session to question the applicant's witness currently under oath. All questions should be directed to the witness regarding his or her testimony only. Questions should not be repeated, and time is not transferable between members of the public. The public should be aware that a public question session will be held upon the conclusion of each individual witness for the applicant. Once the applicant's witness or any other witness has finished testifying, they are not subject to recall by the public, but may take the stand again as part of the applicant's hearing process. Every witness who appears may be subject to board member, board professional, and public questioning. The board and its professionals, however, are not subject to questioning. At the completion of the applicant's case, when the applicant has finished with all of their witnesses and evidence presentation, the chairperson of the zoning board will open up the floor for public comment. At this time, individuals from the public will be sworn in, give their name and address for the record, and will have 1 5-minute session to provide comment or opinion on the application as a whole. This is the time when the public may express to the board their opinions about the application subject to a vote. Time again is not transferable between members of the public. At the conclusion of the public session for comments, the applicant or their attorney may provide a summation or closing statement to the board. After summation, the board and its professionals may engage in a discussion on the record regarding the application and its contents. There will be no further input from the public or the applicant at this time. Upon conclusion of discussion, the board may make a motion with regard to the application and vote upon same. We ask that the applicant and members of the public be respectful of the process as outlined.
Very good, thank you. I think Harvey lost his job for that part. Well done, thank you, Christine.
We do not have any new correspondence this evening. I did forward the meeting minutes for everyone for review from October 15th. Does anyone have any comments or changes or questions?
Let's get a motion to approve them.
I second it.
Mr. Critelli,
Yes.
Ms. Brunel? Deb, you're muted.
Aye.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Afuso,
Yes.
Mr. Wade,
Yes.
Mr. Quinlan,
Yes.
and Chair Mayor.
Yes.
We do have one resolution for memorialization. It's Resolution 2020-15, approval of a bulk variance for Mark and Jeanette Schneiderman, Block 88, Lot 16, 508 Bradley Boulevard. Can I have one of those members eligible to make a motion?
So moved.
Make a motion.
Oh, sorry.
Uh,
Go ahead, Mark.
I'll second.
Okay, so Mr. Wade and Mr. Afuso is my second.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Wade,
Yes.
Mr. Afuso,
Yes.
Mr. Critelli,
Yes.
Ms. Brunel,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
and Chair Mayor.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, before we start, I'd like to just make an announcement to the general public who are here to hear the application of Alan and Marilyn Levine, Block 48, Lot 2 at 413 Brindley. That application will not be heard tonight. It will be carried until December, the next meeting of December, I believe,
17th,
17th. Without notice?
without notice.
Without notice. If you're here for that application will not be heard tonight. So we can go to the next one, which is Frank and Stacy Caponegro. And I don't see them.
I see Stacy's iPad.
Oh, okay.
Good evening.
Are you represented by attorney or professionals?
We are not, we do have a professional from Shore Point Architecture, Andrea Fitzpatrick. I believe she's on.
Okay.
I'm here. I am here. Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. and Mrs. Caponegro, along with Ms. Fitzpatrick, Ms. Bell, and Mr. Frieda, if you'd raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth of tonight's proceeding?
I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, please make your application, please.
Okay, so I'll start with an introduction. We first want to thank the board for hearing our case tonight. We are going to have testimony, my wife and ourselves. The lead testimony will be with our professional, Christy. Andrea, sorry. I just like to say a couple things. Our house was built in 1936 before the advent of planning and zoning. So it did create some existing nonconformities. We came to Bradley Beach in 2012. We also built a business here on Main Street in 2015. We really love it in Bradley, and now we're ready to make the next step. And that step is for the board to hear our case tonight. And so we can expand this home so we can live here comfortably for the rest of our lives. So with that, I will turn over the rest of our testimony to Andrea. And then if there's any questions, of course, my wife and I are here to answer them from the board or the public.
Okay, good evening. My name is Andrea Fitzpatrick. I'm a registered architect in the state of New Jersey. I've been a registered architect for the past 10 years, and I currently work at Shore Point Architecture, which is located in Ocean Grove. I've been with the firm since 2008, and I'm an associate there. I've testified in front of numerous boards, planning, zoning, historic preservation boards in Monmouth County, including Manasquan, Neptune, Middletown, Seabright, Oceanport, and Allenhurst. So that's a brief introduction of myself, and if it's okay, I'd like to just kind of jump into the project. Can you all see my screen?
Can just,
Picture the building?
so Mr. Chairman, this witness is being offered as an expert in the field of architecture. Do you accept that?
I see no reason why not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Is my screen being shared? Can you see
Yes.
the screen?
Yes.
Okay, in case any of you aren't familiar with the property, this is a photograph of the existing condition of the property. It's a house located at 510 4th Avenue in Bradley Beach. It's a 1.5 story dwelling. Doesn't really look like that from the front elevation. But if you jump to my architectural drawings, on the second sheet, we do have existing conditions drawings, which represent the floor plans and the elevations of the existing structure. And as you can see, there's up on the second floor, there's 2 bedrooms and a den space. The maximum ceiling height up here is about 6'8", right in the middle of the space. It's obviously very difficult to use this space efficiently. It really just hard to stand up here. So the applicant is really looking to make better use of this space up at the second floor level. And I'd say that's the crux of the application, along with making some exterior enhancements to the property. Just staying on the sheet, we have provided you with floor plans of the accessory structure, which is located at the rear corner of the property, just as a courtesy, but we are not proposing any modifications to that structure. So I think if everyone's clear on the existing condition of the structure, I'd like to just jump into the proposed design, starting with a color elevation photograph of what we're proposing here. So this is a color elevation that our office prepared, showing a 2nd story addition over the footprint of the existing structure. I'll get further into the design once I jump back to the drawings, but I wanted to just give you an overview of what the project is going to look like upon its completion. So moving back to the architectural drawings, I'm going to turn to page A. Actually, I think we should start on A4, which are the elevation drawings. So again, we have an existing structure that is located, I'll talk about the setback. So I'm located in close proximity to the property line. I'm sorry to jump around on you, but if you move back to A1, we have a site plan on the drawing. So the existing structure is located 2.5 feet off the western property line. It's an existing nonconformity. We're looking to add a 2nd story plus a 1/2 story, which is a walk-up attic, which you can see in plan, above the footprint of the existing structure. We're not asking to encroach out beyond the existing structure. We're also proposing some modifications to the front porch of the structure. As you could see right now. There's a covered porch with a gable roof on it, and then sort of a secondary gable that's kind of offset from the front door. What we're looking to do is remove this front porch, and roughly maintaining the same existing footprint. We're looking to continue our use with a first floor porch, and we're looking to add a second floor balcony, as you can see in the color elevation. I think that's a pretty good overview of the site. We might come back to the site again to talk about some of the variances that we're looking for tonight. If we move on to drawing A3, you can see the floor plan. We're not proposing any modifications to the first floor plan. We're even going to preserve the existing staircase and the stair location. And also, again, at the lower level, the porch is very similar to what you see today. There's no expansion to this porch other than a small corner here that we're asking to fill in. It's a kind of an odd condition. It's hard to see in this photograph, but there's sort of a notched out corner here, which is a little odd. So again, we're just looking to square off this corner of the porch. And we're also asking for a minor modification to the front entry. Again, when this house was constructed, there was a series of additions to this porch. There was this original, most likely original slate walkway, and then the porch was later expanded upon. So we're looking to really kind of clean up this entry condition with a new stair and a new wing wall adjacent to the stair that ties into the new porch material. Moving on to the second floor plan. Again, program-wise, not too much different than what's there now, but you will have obviously better ceiling height. We're proposing a master bedroom at the front of the house with a cathedral ceiling, so you wouldn't even be able to use your attic space in this area because we are proposing a full cathedral in this location. And then we're proposing just one bedroom at the rear of the house, so 2 bedrooms, and 1 shared bathroom with 2 walk-in closets. So again, really not much different than what's there now, but just some much better use of the space, so you could stand up and circulate around it. Again, the half story is really just a walk-up attic. We have provided a stair to the space. You might notice on the drawings, there's some revision bubbles. Those revision bubbles were clarification for our original zoning denial, where there was some questions about the half story, and we were asked to provide diagrams to prove that this was in fact a half story and not a 3rd floor. And the zoning officer was in agreement, and that's why you see the revision bubbles. So again, here's a stair up to the attic. We don't have an attic plan, but it's really just a small area at the back half of the house that's intended to be used as storage. Moving on to the elevation drawings. So at the top right corner is a front elevation, which is similar to the color elevation you previously saw. Again, you'll notice the open balcony and uncovered balcony at the 2nd floor level, which I failed to mention in plan, but we'll show you quickly. So you'll see, again, a portion of the roof of the porch is carved out for an uncovered balcony. We think that'll be a nice feature for the master bedroom. And then essentially what you're looking at in elevation is we're trying to create some architectural interest and trying to, again, clean up the entry condition. What we've done is to enhance the entry. We've created a turret that is centered now over the entry door, a slight barrel roof with some accent metal roofing over the porch, and then a double gable for the front elevation with a 4-column arrangement across the front, actually a 5-column arrangement and a railing. You'll see on the side elevation, again, it's just the basic gable that you're seeing in side elevation. And at the opposite side, you'll see the side of the turret and the gable as well. And then at the rear elevation, a single gable, which we've attempted to accent with some board and batten. I think that pretty much covers the design that we're proposing. The next thing I'd like to do is just see if there are any questions on the design itself before I jump into the engineering report and go over some of the variance items.
Questions from the board? It's not.
Let's just,
Proceed.
we have questions
One
from,
question. On the side, does the porch extend around to the side of the house, or is the porch strictly in the front?
So I'm gonna just jump. I think the floor plan is the easiest place to see this, which is our drawing A2.
Okay.
So if you go down to A2, which I'm on right now, and I'm kind of zooming in. So the porch does not extend into the side at all. It just extends across the front. It actually does extend beyond the front, but it really, it doesn't go back into the side. So this would just be all roof, and then this would be porch. And we actually have a section, it's looks a little unusual in plan. Section would be open to below. But if you look in front elevation, you wouldn't notice that section. It actually, we're extending the railing past that open to below section. So it would just look like an extension of the porch. But jumping over to the side elevation, you'll see the termination of the porch at the front line of the house. So no, it does not extend along the side.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is the third floor, the storage area, climate controlled? Does it have heat, air conditioning?
So it, again, just for the record, it is a half story. I can ask Frank and Stacy to jump in on that. I don't want to speak for them what their intentions are for the half story. Frank and Stacy, did you
Am I,
want to jump
am I muted?
No, you're.
No? So the intention is at some point to climate control that, because it will be for storage for a lot of craft items that my wife does currently do. So of course it will get very hot up there or very cold if we don't try to do something with some kind of climate control.
Yeah, I'm on video.
I guess then my question is there some sort of affidavit that won't become living space down the road?
Well, being that it's a half story, I mean, it's really up to you, Frank and Stacy, but it is not a full story. It is a half story, which is permitted by zoning, but you could speak to that, Frank and Stacy, if you'd like.
Yeah, there's no intention to have that as an additional living space. It's attic space. That's what we're categorizing it. On the drawings, that's what it's going to be.
Excuse me, this is Jerry. If I can ask a question of the architect. What percentage of the second floor is the half story? Is it less than 50%? Do you know?
Yes, it is. So again, you'll notice some revision bubbles on the drawings. That was our clarification of the half story, but yes, it is less than 50%. We do have a diagram on drawing A1, which certifies that it's significantly less than 50%.
Right, so
Mostly
just to put that point to bed, if it's less than 50%, it's permissible, so you should be okay. A variance isn't needed for that.
I have a resident with their hand up. Eileen, she says.
Yes, knowing Frank and Stacy and looking at the schematic of their improvements, and a resident of Fourth Avenue, I think this is a wonderful enhancement.
So I think that's, I appreciate your sentiment, but this is for questions. And if you want to give a comment at the end of the application, you're more than welcome to, but we need to swear you in when we'll do that. So just hold that thought, please.
I apologize.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
question from the board on variance and waivers B number 4, that slight change from 67.1 to 67.7, that's the bump out? That's what that change of impervious coverage is?
Yeah, I was
Okay.
actually going to go through the letter line item by line item and just explain each
Okay.
variance and why we need them.
Okay,
But
sorry.
I'll get to that for sure.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. So can I?
Let me, I just have to scroll down. Are there any other members of the public who have questions of Andrea regarding her testimony thus far? I don't see any virtual hands and I don't see any physical hands.
And
if you-
once she completes her testimony, we'll open it up for questions again.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so we received a engineering review letter, which I'd like to go over. Starting on the first sheet, really not too much here. I think I'll start on number 3, variances and waivers. Okay, I was muted, but now I'm unmuted, so I don't know how much you heard of that, but I'll start over. So I'm going to start with item number 3, which are the variances and waivers. The first of which is our second floor. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, the second floor front porch that we had previously discussed. The ordinance allows a porch projection into the setback, which we are asking for. However, that porch is required to have an open railing, and our porch does not have an open railing. So that's why we're indicated as a variance for this item. What we're proposing here, I believe, is in the same spirit as an open railing. It's 100% transparent, which is a glass railing. You can see through this in its entirety. It's not a knee wall. It's not a bulkhead. It will allow light and air, light to pass through it. So I hope the board will consider our request for a variance for the glass railing, even though it is not open.
And if I may, again, it's Jerry. I do agree with the architect's testimony here. It's just that reason why it's highlighted is our ordinance does go into specifics on the railings and the spindles. And because this is a different system, it was brought up as a variance, but it's a minor one and should be considered by the board.
Thank you.
Yep.
The second of which is regarding projections. So as I previously mentioned, we have a house that is located very close to the western property line in its existing condition. To construct the addition, we don't have the benefit of relocating the house. So what we're proposing is a projection, which is very similar to what currently exists. The existing house on the western elevation has an 18-inch overhang and a gutter. And what we're proposing is a 17-inch overhang and a gutter. So we're not asking to exacerbate an existing condition. We're just asking the board to consider allowing us to extend this condition. Again, we don't have the benefit of relocating the structure. The addition is directly above of the existing house. So that's why we're asking for the encroachment projection. Moving on to letter B. There was a question about the calculation for the average front setback. The engineer indicated that he felt that we complied because the average when he calculated it was 24.59, but the surveyor didn't actually show that calculation on this updated survey. But our proposed setback is 24.7 feet. So what we would propose as a condition of the approval would be a resubmission of the survey with the actual calculation on it, if that was okay with the board.
And again, Jerry, that would be acceptable to us. We did do the calculation ourselves, but it really should come from the licensed surveyor.
Okay, so we would absolutely be willing to resubmit that. Item number 2 here is the side yard setback. Again, it's the same argument as the encroachment setback. So we have an existing structure that's currently located 2.5 feet from the western property line, and we're asking the board to consider allowing us to construct this second story addition over the existing building footprint, which would also require the same setback variance. There was a question about building height that came up, and I do apologize for the error here. We did calculate the building height from the wrong location. We calculated it from the first floor subfloor. I went back and did the math, and the building height is actually would be 30.63 feet, which still conforms to the height ordinance. And again, if the board was okay with it, we would agree to submit a revision as part of resolution compliance, indicating the correct height of 30.63 feet. I don't know if the engineer has any thoughts on that one, but that would be our position on the height.
No, I mean, again, that's fine. It would be acceptable.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the question that previously came up, which is a coverage variance. So we do have a coverage of existing impervious coverage of 67.1%, and we're looking to increase to 67.7%, which equates to 39 square feet. What we're really looking to do here, again, all of this increased coverage really comes in the form of a modification to our front stairs and walkway. And to make this easier for you to understand, what I did was I added a fine dashed line to my plans to show you where the previous porch landed. And I indicated the area of expanded porch. So again, this is really a de minimis area. It's very small, but it's going to clean up the porch. Before it was very segmented. And I feel that this is going to give a nice continuous feel to the space. It's a very small area. And as I mentioned before, very minor modification to the front walkway, which it really just involves an increase in coverage of just a few square feet to create a really nice entry stair condition that really accents his front doorway. So again,
Yeah, if I may, it's Jerry again. I do agree with those comments. It is, the benefit far outweighs the small addition of area. However, I wondered if the applicant would consider removing the impervious area behind the outdoor cooking area to help mitigate the amount percentage that you're over on allowable coverage.
and that is
Yes,
just for the record, 65 square feet.
Well, the area behind the outdoor, I guess you guys know what I'm referring to.
yes.
It's also an area that when it was built, it encroaches on the neighbor's property. So it should be addressed if possible. And if we could take it away to the back of the grill, that would remove, I don't know, like 1.5% coverage. So it doesn't make you compliant, but it gets you closer that way. So if you would agree to that, that would be a good condition if it's approved.
Yes, we're in
Mr.
agreement.
Frieda, we're in full agreement with that.
And so that sounds very reasonable.
So Jerry, what's the actual square footage on that?
I'd have to calculate it. I think it was,
I have it
I'd
at
have to
65.
it's like, is it 90 square feet?
I have it at 65. I just did the math. Which,
Okay.
we're asking to add 39 as part of this application.
Yeah, so
So-
it actually gets you less than what was previously done.
That's right.
So what is
Right.
the surface that's being removed?
65, it's 65 square feet of concrete surface.
Thank you.
And if that's agreeable, I think that would be a good concession.
Okay, absolutely. The
Thank you.
next, thank you. The next, really the next one was a question. It was about parking on the site. I'll just briefly touch on that. They asked about provide testimony on the number of off-street parking spaces. So there is a shared driveway between the two properties. However, the driveway breaks off and clears onto our property. And from the face of the garage to the portion of the driveway that is on the subject property, the length is 42 feet, which is sufficient to fit 2 cars on the property. As for the garage has 1 garage door, so it could fit 1 car internally in it that's existing. There is a man door on the front elevation of the garage. And again, we did provide the plans for that. So Frank and Stacy, I just want to make sure I have it right. I have 1 car in the garage and then 2 that you could contain fully within your property.
Yeah, so I'll give testimony on that. Well, if you don't consider the golf cart that's in there also, so, but, and it is a registered vehicle, but anyway. I also want to make mention that this, I call it a shared entryway with my neighbor to the east of me. We only have 1 curb cut for 2 existing conforming lots, which makes it more parking on the street for the neighbors in this area, because we do not have 2 curb cuts for those homes. So I just wanted to mention that also.
Okay.
Just one issue is, because it's an apartment, you actually need 4 spaces on site. I know your testimony is so far been 3, but it does appear that you can easily park the 4 spaces on your property. If you could just give us some testimony as to being able to do that, that would help.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I would say that at the mouth of the garage, I would say we could get 2 cars side by side, 1, 2, and then the third one behind it.
Yeah, that I would say that testimony is truthful. We have had 3 cars in front of that driveway many, many times.
And I appreciate that. We needed that on the record.
Sure.
So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you. There's some additional comments about nonconformities to the accessory structures. Again, we're not proposing any modifications to these structures. There's some comments about the distance between the outdoor kitchen and the house. Again, there's no proposed modifications here with the exception of the removal of the coverage behind the grill as we previously discussed. I'm going to move on, if that's okay, to the general comments. There was a comment about, in order to promote groundwater recharge, we recommend all roof leaders be connected to an underground recharge system. And if this is the case, the applicant will provide drainage calculation soil log. We're asking the board and the township engineer to consider to allow us to utilize our existing drainage pattern on this site, which is downspouts that spill out onto grade. We don't have a topographic survey of the property, but Frank and Stacy, if you wanted to provide some testimony about the current drainage patterns, if you have any issues with drainage or water, I think that would be welcome here.
Yes, so my feeling is we do not currently have any issues with drainage. I don't believe my neighbors do. We have a very good rapport with both those neighbors. I feel that if the soil right now is in a stable condition for many years, if we start digging up that soil, there's no guarantee that we're not going to get water in the basement and possibly wherever that water is going to run off. So I would ask the board to please consider that we leave the drainage the way it is. It doesn't point toward either of the homes. It comes out to the sidewalk. So I believe we have a really good drainage system right now.
So we would agree to just direct the downspouts towards the street.
Correct.
If that would be,
If the board is okay with that, then it just needs to be addressed as well. That's another issue. That's why it was in the letter.
Sure.
so there were some questions about adding some general notes to the plans, which again, we would agree to all of these items as part of resolution compliance. Note about the planting area, the curbs and sidewalks, and we would just simply add that to our plans and resubmit them. And then there was a question about the taxes being currently paid, and Stacy and Frank, if you wanted to comment on that.
The tax and sewer are all up to date and then paid.
Okay, so I believe that concludes my testimony, and obviously, if anyone has any questions, please let me know.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, please, Mike.
thank you. Ms. Fitzpatrick, very thorough, excellent work.
Thank you.
Just quick question on your methodology of calculating the building height. Can you just walk me through what the methodology is?
Sure. So when we measured the house, we document the distance down to grade from all adjacent areas. So we'll take the steps down and we'll actually take our tape measure and we'll measure the grade level. So we calculated the average grade elevation ourselves during our field measure work. And what we did was we actually had the benefit of having a porch on all four corners to drop our tape measure down. So we took the four corners, averaged them together, and that was our average grade plane. And that was where we
Okay.
came up with the additional height.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Jerry, I have a question for you on something. On the plan, on the site plan, I'm looking at the two existing air conditioning units. One appears to be over the property line and one's on the property line. There's no testimony or any comments about replacing them, moving them, or grandfathering them. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
They should be adjusted to be on the property. But if you have an existing condition, there's really nothing we can do except ask if it can be altered. So if the applicant would consider trying to tuck those up a little closer onto the building, I think that would be helpful. But they're actually existing units, they're not proposed.
And but there was no testimony as to whether they're being replaced or not. Maybe ask that question.
I think that's a valid question to ask, yes.
Was there intent to upgrade the system or just use the existing system?
So we are going to use the existing system. They are in good condition, so we would prefer using them. I certainly can have an HVAC guy come in and see if he can tuck them in anymore. But the air handler is right opposite that wall in the basement. And to move those entirely somewhere else, I believe it creates an undue hardship for us. But I certainly can have again, an HVAC guy come in and say, can we get those any closer? So we're in conformity with, or at least closer to that.
Yeah, because conformity is not there. They have to be somewhere else.
Yes, exactly. So, but we can try and get them closer.
And there's been no test, we find out later, any testimony from your neighbors, they don't have an issue with it. Existing neighbors, at least.
I don't know of any of the neighbors having any issues with those units. Actually, my neighbor to the west has his unit right there. They are very close. I do agree. But again, having built this house being built in 1936 before the advent of planning and zoning, and there are a few nonconformities that we just we inherited it.
Not in Bradley Beach. Okay, all right. It just I see him here on the plan. Just
I understand.
And if you go back to the downsprout issue, and Jerry, just a question too about the square footage of the roof. I guess the roof and the surface area hasn't really changed. It's just being reconfigured with a new addition. So all that, is there any more catching of water, any more volume of water going to be directed off this roof because you are so close?
No, the answer is no.
Okay.
Their application's not enlarging the building, so there is no additional water. It's going to be the same amount of water. It was just merely whenever an application comes in that's over the impervious coverage, we highlight that so that the board's aware.
That's fair.
Mhm.
I have no more questions. Any other questions on the board?
I
Let's
don't
see.
see anyone. Just checking with the public.
Any
I don't
questions?
see any hands. Wait a second.
Any questions directed to the applicant?
I had a Robert with his hand up before, but it appears he took his hand down. So Robert, if you still have your question, now's the time to ask. I don't see any.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. It really wasn't a question. It was more to do with Frank mentioning about the water coming off the roof. I live next door to Frank and Stacy. I'm at 508 4th Avenue. Yeah, there's no issues with water coming off the roof. I've been there 3 years and we have no issues on that.
Right, so perhaps when we do the comments at the end, you can speak to that. That would be helpful, okay?
Can't get my
Speaker
picture.
view.
Who?
Anyone else?
I don't see anyone else. Do we have any further questions or?
Captain Hayward, do you have any other witnesses speak or any other testimony?
I do
Hey,
not.
the lady
sir.
with her hand up,
Where's that?
Eileen Sheshis.
Hello. Once again, can you hear me?
Is this a question or a comment?
Comment.
Okay,
No.
not yet.
Okay, I'm
Later.
sorry. I apologize.
No problem. Well, seeing no more questions, I should open up the application to the public for comment. Now,
Eileen, here's your chance.
Okay, Eileen, before you go, and if anybody else has a comment, you're gonna tell me your name, your address, and I'm gonna swear you in and then go for it, okay?
Please give me a minute. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I am Eileen Shishias at 112 4th Avenue in Bradley Beach.
Okay, raise your
And
right hand. Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth tonight's proceeding?
absolutely.
Very good, thank you.
I know Frank and Stacy very, very well. I've viewed the plans for their enhancements to our street, and I think it's a wonderful, wonderful plan, and I endorse it 100%. Am I wrong?
no, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments on this application from the public?
I only see the first name, but Robert, did you want to put your comment?
Yes, I would. Robert Voisey, 508 4th Avenue.
Robert, how do you spell your last name?
V as in Victor, O-Y, S as in Sam, E-Y.
Okay, and do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth tonight's proceeding?
Yes, I do.
And what was the street number, street address?
508 4th Avenue.
Thank you very much.
I'm the neighbor to the east of Frank and Stacy. Myself and my wife, we bought the house probably about 2017. Frank and Stacy are wonderful neighbors. We love having them as neighbors. We couldn't ask for better neighbors. So that's the first thing. You mentioned about parking. I've figured that you could possibly get 5 cars back there. Frank, you mentioned 4. I think we can. I've seen you park 5 cars back there. So there's more than enough parking off the street in our common driveway. There was water coming from the roof. Again, no issue there. The drainage in the soil here, it just literally disappears. So there's no issues there. I welcome the project. If it's an improvement to the house, it's an improvement to the town, and I welcome it. And good luck to you.
Thank you,
I
Robert.
guess we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Robert.
No one else?
Let me just scroll through. I have a lot of participants, so I don't see anyone with their hand up. A lot of people are not participating with video, so it's hard to tell.
Okay,
Okay,
good. Mrs. Caponegro, you're ready, you're done with your application?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Very good. Well, as it stands, I'll make a motion to approve the application with just a couple of changes that were noted during the testimony, such as the removal of the concrete behind the existing outdoor kitchen to reduce the impervious coverage. And since we really didn't talk about an area, I guess we should quantify that as far as what should be removed.
It is approximately 65 square feet.
Okay, so that's what we're looking for, a number of 65 square feet to be removed to bring the impervious coverage down. All the variances noted, especially with the open railing, it's a new style railing. In spirit, it is an open railing, may not be slats, but it's open. That may be what the intent was. The eaves, really don't see an issue, but as the variances as requested, incorporate that into the application. Anything else we're missing?
The only thing I'm just verifying, it's acceptable, the proposal from the applicant regarding the handling of the drainage. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay,
The drainage was to be just the leaders and not a ground discharge unit.
very good.
All right.
I'll
Anything
second
else?
that motion.
Thank you, Mike.
I'll second it.
Go ahead, give it to Rob.
I'll
Sure.
second it.
okay, thank you, Mr. Quinlan. Mr. Critelli?
Yes, I think it'll be improvement to the neighborhood and to the town. Good luck with your new home.
Thank you.
Ms. Brunel?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Mr. Fuso?
I think the changes here are absolutely reasonable. I appreciate the applicant and the professional doing this in such a professional way. I am sorry to see that little house go. It's a great house.
I know.
I walk past it quite often,
Yeah.
but this is certainly going to be an improvement to the neighborhood, so I vote yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Wade?
Lovely drawing. I
Uh,
really
It
like
looks like a great project and a big improvement to 4th Avenue there, and good luck with it. Yeah, I vote yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Quinlan?
Yeah, I vote yes. I think it's a great improvement and gives a little style to the neighborhood. And we look forward to seeing it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Chair Mayor.
Nothing more to add. I vote yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gina.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Much.
You're approved.
So much.
Thank you.
Thank
Good luck.
you.
Thank
Thank you.
Good luck with it.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Good night.
Thank you. Night.
You're gonna lead the meeting?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Guess he won the bet. Alrighty, do you take a break or anything, or are we all set? Keep going.
Let's keep going.
Keep
Keep
going.
going.
You got it.
Going.
All right, let's call the application of Lee Residence, Block 21, Lot 5.
I have to mute out here.
So, Mr. Wade, is this one that you'll be recusing yourself?
Yes, yes, Mark.
You're within 200 feet or?
Yes, I'm within 200 feet.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Mark,
out.
do I have to put Mr. Wade in the waiting room or can he stay?
You don't. He can stay. I mean, so for members of the public, Mr. Wade is got a notice regarding the application. He's within 200 feet of the project. So he can't hear the application, but since he is a neighbor and was noticed, he has the right to participate as a citizen in the town. So that's up to him whether he wants to participate. He's not disqualified, so he doesn't have to leave the room. So.
Thank you.
Okay, sure.
I'll be here.
Good.
So very good. Thank you.
Okay, so the next application is ZB 20/16, Richard and Michelle Lee, Block 21, Lot 5, 507 Park Place Avenue. The applicants are seeking variances associated with the construction of a proposed 2.5-story addition, including front yard setback for open side covered front porch, the distance between accessory and primary structure, as well as an open sided roofed porch in the rear. I'm just trying to find our applicants.
They're in the middle.
Right here.
Oh, okay, I see you, I see you.
We are.
Ender Square.
We also have our architect on, Al Shasias.
Okay.
So if you'd like, I can do a quick introduction and then Al will take over. Is that all right?
Before you do that, that's fine. But before you do that, why don't we swear Mr. and Mrs. Lee, your architect, and our two professionals. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth tonight's proceeding?
I do.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, well, first of all, I'd like to thank the board for their time. I really appreciate it. I'm Rich, and this is my wife, Michelle Lee. We've owned 507 Park Place Avenue for 3 years. We have recently moved to Bradley Beach full-time. We sold our family home in Somerset County and now live here full-time. This is our only residence. The house was built in 1914. It has a number of pre-existing nonconformities and hence the reason for the application. The house at 507 Park Place is of modest size. We plan on retiring here full-time. And in order to make it a little bit more comfortable and large enough so that we can have our family visit, etc., we're looking to expand the house with a great room and an additional master suite. I'd just like to put in a clarification that this is a 2-story plan. There's not a half-story involved in the application. So that was a... No, but it's not a walk-up attic. It's just a storage attic. So there's no walk-up or stairs going up to the attic. It's just simply a regular attic. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to our architect, Al Shasias, who will provide his testimony regarding our variance application.
Hi, yeah, my name's Al Shasias. I was surprised to see another Shasias on tonight. That's very rare. I've actually never ran into another one. And the last name's so difficult to pronounce, we even pronounce it differently. So,
I
yeah,
thought it
so
was your
that-
mother cheering you on, maybe.
I'm blown away. Like my mind's boggling. I really don't know any others. So even my own father pronounces our name differently than I do.
Right.
So Al Shasias, and last name spelled SHISSIAS. And I'm a registered architect and landscape architect in the state of New Jersey. I actually sit on a zoning board nearby, presented in front of several towns in Monmouth County. So yeah, that's my credentials. Okay, so Rich.
Mr. Chairman.
I see no reason why not.
Okay, so you've been accepted as an expert in the field of architecture. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so Rich and Michelle gave kind of a brief intro. I'll run through a description of the project that we're proposing. And I haven't had to deal with this yet. Should I share my screen so I can go through the PDF?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
See it. Nothing on there. Nothing on. There we go.
There you go.
Got it. Okay, great. Thanks.
All right, you're there.
Okay. So I'll run through the existing floor plan just so you can get a sense. Right now, it's a 3-bed, 1.5-bath house. It's about almost 1,300 square feet. Basement is really not finished. It's not something you would finish because of a low ceiling height, 6 foot and change. As Rich mentioned, technically it is a half-story, but it's it's unfinished. It's accessed via a drop-down ladder, so it's really 2 living stories. Here you can see the front porch, which is off of Park Place. You enter into a large open living room, kind of loosely defined kitchen and dining, which is pretty small. And in the back, there's an existing laundry, pseudo mudroom, and a powder. On the second floor, there are 3 bedrooms, 2 of modest size, 1 reasonable, all share 1 common bath and a walk-in closet on the back end. As far as the existing site, sorry, the graphics here are hard to read, but here's the house. This is Park Place. And there is also a existing 2-story garage in the rear existing, which is used for storage. It's not heated, no apartment or anything like that. Out of the 50-foot lot, the house is really banked toward this side. So the addition you'll see will be going toward the portion that's open part of the site, which makes sense. So for the proposed plans, what we're looking to do is really add a master suite to create a 4-bed, 2.5-bath house with a total square footage of a little over 2,000. So it's still not a large house by any means, but appropriate for the lot, I think. So what we're looking at doing is the existing front porch. We're looking at adding a wraparound for both architectural reasons and use. The homeowners, Rich and Michelle, like the idea of a wraparound porch. So we're looking at expanding it here and wrapping it around the back, which will also help architecturally tie in a 2-story addition, which is really this zone. We're going to reconfigure the entry living room to more of a den and have more of a traditional great room that a lot of homes, any new homes I'm doing, kind of have this sort of room where it's a combination of a kitchen, living area, we have a gas fireplace, and a zone for a dining table here, as well as also a pantry that leads to the basement below. Not an expansion of the mudroom, but getting rid of the laundry. We're going to bump the laundry up to the 2nd floor, which is common in a lot of addition renovations, and make this more of a usable mudroom and keep the existing powder room. On the back, we're looking to do, it's labeled back porch. It's functionally, because if you look at the circulation, it's really more of a covered landing for the entry to the great room. We have a big 4-panel patio slider and a entry to the mudroom door. So what we're trying to do is kind of collect both entries into the house. This may be the more day-to-day entry from the yard, but maybe during the summer, if they're coming in and out and they're having a grill or they're using their patio, we could definitely see using these sliders more than anything. So you can see this really is not an area that'd be congregation. So that's one of the variances. So that's why I'm going into that. We're also trying to talk about the exteriors. We're trying to keep with the existing style of the house. I'm a big proponent of keeping existing roof lines, proportions, windows, things like that. So I don't have existing elevations shown, but really the existing home really looks like this portion right here. So it's a simple gable from front to back. And right now this porch cuts off where my hand is located. This two-story addition really is in the background and set far back from this front. There's a wraparound porch here with stairs going down more directly to the driveway. And this is so if this is a front elevation, this is the left side elevation. So this really is a two-story addition coming out here. And you can see how far set back that is. The 2D elevation kind of is hard to tell from here, but you can see what that's doing. Here's the wraparound porch. So the existing home really goes its full length. The two-story addition bumps out in this portion. And here we're trying to keep the proportions of the front gable to some level, also keep the ridge lines aligned. And here's a covered porch, covered entry in the back. Again, wraparound porch here. And this is the rear elevation. This is the existing home with some reconfigured windows. And here again is a two-story addition. And this would be flush in the back. We're, by doing this covered porch, covered entry in the back, we have the 4-panel sliders I referred to, and an entry to the mudroom is to the left where my hand is right there. So that'll break the scale down a little bit for a patio that we're going to have located in the back. So that's really the project that's proposed. There's 3 variances with this, one of which may not be considered a variance based on the borough's engineering report. But the front porch, there's an ordinance that allows us to use the average setbacks of houses within 200 feet, which I think is a great ordinance. A lot of towns do have them. I think it does help maintain the character of the street, despite what the zone's setback may be. We did have a surveyor go up and down the street and pick any homes, or if the home had a front porch. There's 10 homes on the block, all within 200 feet. 8 of the 10 are kind of typical. And as the engineering report discussed, 2 of the 10 are outliers, meaning that they're just so far set back. They actually excluded them from their calculation. The zoning ordinance isn't entirely clear on whether that's counted or not. Some towns actually will mention or quantify what's considered an outlier and doesn't get included in their calculation. If you go by the engineering report, which I agree with that outlook on it, if you take 2 of those 10 out, which is actually lots, you know what, I'm gonna bring up, I don't have it with me, but the the survey showing the existing homes, it's lot 8 and lot 1. The average setback without those for the homes is about 14.5 feet. These other 2 lots have about 60 feet each. So it's just so far set back. We're excluding that from the calculation. Same thing with the porch as well. One of those lots has a porch. Again, it's an outlier. If you average the porches that are not outliers, the average setback is our calculation showing about 8.7, and the engineering report basically noted that a 9-foot setback, which is what we're proposing, and again, that's also an existing setback. We're just expanding it to do this wraparound porch. So it's really an increase in the nonconformity. The engineering report would agree that that's not considered a variance, but whether it is or not, I think it's something that we would like your consideration on accepting, just to make sure. The second variance is another ordinance that basically you have to have a minimum distance of 20 feet between a primary structure and an accessory building. And if you look at the site plan, again, it's a little hard to see here. Here's the existing 2.5-story single family dwelling. Here's this 2-story garage. Right now, that's about 18.4 feet off. So when we're proposing our addition, for several reasons, the way the plans worked out, we're really pulling that addition straight off. That crosshatch that changes direction is just a roof that bumps out, but the actual second floor mass that sticks over the covered entry below, that is aligned with the existing rear elevation. So basically what that does is it creates a variance in that's also 18.4 feet off the existing garage. So that's one of the variances. And just to talk about partly why, you know what, I'm going to talk about the third variance and then go into architecturally why we're going forward with that option and hoping for a granting of variances with this. The third variance is that there's an ordinance in town, and it's kind of interesting. I've never run across this. And there was some backstory to this, I think, even amongst your board recently, based on some research we did, that a covered rear porch is allowed to encroach on a required rear yard or side yard within a certain amount, but it cannot be covered. So we got a zoning denial basically saying that you cannot have a covered porch within a rear yard. It's difficult to interpret the ordinance, but the way the zoning officer's interpreting it is that we're not even allowed to have any covered porch in the backyard. The covered porch we're proposing, whether you go to the roof overhang or the home itself, is within about 39.3 to 40.8 feet off of that rear yard line. The setback for the primary structure off the rear yard is actually 25 feet. So we're still about 15 feet beyond the primary structure setback. The side yard setback for the proposed covered rear porch is 14.4, and basically we would be required to have 10. So it's beyond the setbacks for the primary structure, but the way the ordinance is being read is that's not permitted. Now, when we look back, because we were scratching our heads as to why this ordinance would be in place, when we did some research across online, we came to one of the minutes from a meeting that apparently was May of this year, and it appears that another residence had applied, and this was one of the variances. And I'm reading off minutes here. I won't go too into depth, and you may have been given documents or copies of these as the homeowner supplied that as part of the application. And this was for Ralph and Fiorella Giacobi. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but basically the issue came up as well. And there was previous testimony by their architect and their land use attorney that was basically taking an opposing opinion on whether that's how the ordinance was written or not. But it appears then, and I know every application stands on its own, it's separate, but it appears at that time as well that the board agreed that would not necessarily be an issue, would not be a detriment to neighbors. I don't know if they got in the whole interpretation of whether that was how the ordinance was written or not, but that is the third variance. So real quick, I want to go into why we're laying the house out the way we are and why some of these things are laid out the way they are. I think the front porch is pretty self-explanatory, partly aesthetic, partly functional, which I think will, add to the appeal of the house. But on the first floor, so what we did was the existing mudroom has an entry right where my hand is gone. We're reconfiguring the entry for the great room and mudroom to be kind of gathering them up off this rear covered entry space. We did want to have a lot of access to the backyard and view the backyard with these 4-panel sliders. We also wanted the mudroom entry to be here, which made sense as well. So it really functions more pseudo circulation and a protected covered entry area. As you can tell, being able to furnish this, you might be able to fit a chair here, but this is not going to be something where people are going to be congregating or anything like that, which may have been one of the intents of the ordinance. Another way around it, it appears in that ordinance that this could have been a patio at grade if it was covered, and that actually would be permissible. But because we're about 2 feet above grade and it's classified as a deck, that may be where the issue is. Also, in addition to accessing the house, it gave us enough room to do what we need to do to add this master suite. Now, if you look on the width of this, there is an existing bedroom, which is kind of getting squeezed by the master bedroom coming out. We're actually moving this window over, which is windows are required and egress windows required. So we really didn't want to push the addition further toward the street. This is a modest master bedroom for today's standards. It's maybe 300, 400 square feet, which is kind of on the lower end of what I designed for a new home. We also didn't want to bump out too much further to the neighbors on the left side. So this covered porch area is fully covered by the second floor, which gave us enough room for a medium walk-in closet and a nice master bath. So that's what's driving this. So this portion of the project is creating the two variances, the one being the 18.4 off the garage when 20 is required, and this issue of a covered rear porch. So I think that kind of explains what's going on there. But again, the porch does conform by far to the primary structure setbacks. I'm going to go through a few other things here. Yeah, so going back through, I think that surmises the architectural aspect, explaining what the proposed project is, what the variance issues are, and why we're coming forward looking for relief on those. The engineer review, as I noted, said apparently the wraparound porch, they don't qualify as a variance or no variance needed. In the general comments, similar to the previous applicant, just for record keeping, they had a few comments, all of which I don't think we have any problem complying with. And that would be they want to see a grading plan submitted. Not that much grading really is anticipated. We're pretty much going to keep the grade the way it is, but I do not believe the homeowners would have a problem with that. Something about the side, adding a note that the sidewalk and curb in between must remain grass. That's the plan, so we'll add a note for that. The existing curb and sidewalk along frontage, if it's damaged, will be replaced, which is a standard note we would add anyway, so that's an easy one. The applicant already provided proof to the town that taxes were paid. Also, testimony of the use of the garage. I'm not sure if I already mentioned it. Again, it's a 2-story existing garage, unfinished, unheated, and unconditioned. And right now, both floors are being used for storage. It can't really be used as a garage because it's located behind the home. And I think that pretty much covers that. So I think I'm through my testimony. So I'd like to open it up to the board for
if you could
comment.
If I could just interject, if you wouldn't mind, I was listening to your testimony regarding the upstairs and how that the changes on the upstairs impacted that porch area. Could you just repeat that?
Yeah, so so if you look at one of the main components of doing this project was getting a more modern master suite that, today's homeowners are looking for. And in order to get enough square footage and for a variety of reasons, it actually goes flush to the back of the house. We were kind of limited on the front because of an existing bedroom. And by doing that, we didn't really need more square footage on the first floor. Plus, we want to make like a nice, clean, rectangular space for this great room, kitchen, dining, living. But the outside back left corner, if you're looking from the street, this corner is actually this corner up here. So what we decided was, in order to create a covered entry for protection coming in and out, and gathering up the entries to both this mudroom and the great room, which was going to have this slider, the thought was, instead of building more square footage and more interior space, just make a covered back porch, back entry. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Questions from the board, the architect?
Can you give me another recap of what the height of the building's gonna be to the roof line?
Sure. The height of the building is going to match the existing height, and that's about a little under 26 feet. So the existing home, which you can see here, we're going to match that ridge line with approximately equal roof slope. So it'll kind of tie in architecturally. So we won't be increasing. And I believe the maximum height per the ordinance is 35 feet. So we're about 9 feet under the maximum.
And can you tell me where the air conditioner is gonna be located?
Yeah, so where we were showing it originally, and I'll ask Michelle or Rich, the homeowners, that may or may not change, but it would still comply with zoning ordinance. I had planned on putting the AC units right here, which is actually straddling the old rear elevation and the new. There's actually Bilco doors here going down to the existing basement.
All right.
So the thought was put it here. It's more within the neighbor's purview. I mean, sorry, the homeowner's purview, but it was in order to keep within the setbacks. Now, I think there may have been some discussion, and again, I'll look to Michelle or Rich to talk about this, just in case it does get altered, that it doesn't create an issue if any variances are granted. I think there may have been talk about putting them on the side of the garage here. I don't know how practical that it was with running the condensing lines, but Rich or Michelle, was that the case? Is that still being contemplated?
Our plan right now is to locate them where you have them represented on the plan.
Okay, good.
But the one issue was that the noise factor. So someone did present to us that if we did put them, to the side of the garage, that it would, reduce the sound on the patio.
So I guess what I would submit to the board is that if we're showing them here, and they do relocate them, that if that's acceptable to the board and complies with all zoning ordinances, that's something that wouldn't trip us up. AC units tend to get moved around during construction from where they're planned anyway. But, I don't know how the board looks at that. While we're on that topic, one other thing that I just know from experience tends to change, and even though it doesn't affect any variances, I think these tend to be wish list items, but we're showing a brick veneered fireplace. This is going to be a gas fireplace bump out, but this could either be a bump out with a little shed roof and, whatever siding material, presumably matching existing. Ideally, if budget allows, we would build what's shown here, but just in throwing everything out there on the table and being fully forthright, there's a chance that when budget comes in, this may get removed from the project, to make numbers work. So again, if that could be something that was acceptable to the board, if it needed to be written into any variances, if they were granted, that's the other thing that's kind of flexible in my mind that may change.
So if I understand it correctly, you may take the brick fireplace, the chimney that's there now, and just replace it with a new stainless vent out the side of the house and remove the entire chimney.
Yeah, and quite frankly, even if this chimney is built as drawn, it probably will still have a direct vent out the side, which, they're not very visible. They're more like any other vent coming out of the house. But yes, that's correct. And we'd have a little shed roof over it, or bump it in so it doesn't even bump out of the house.
Well, that's a design feature, isn't it, Jerry? I mean,
Yeah, I just want to, sometimes, I know when we present things to a board, it's sometimes your decisions based on aesthetics and other architectural considerations. So.
One other question relative to impervious coverage. What is the impervious coverage?
Impervious coverage, we were very close. 60% is the limit, and we're just under at 59.5.
Okay.
And that's also including, that accounts for 3 parking spaces fully paved here.
Right.
So I don't anticipate that the homeowners are going to be looking for, more patio down the road.
No, we are not.
Chairman?
Any more questions from the board to the architect?
Mr. Chairman,
Mike?
this is more to Mr. Frieda, but it's on the architectural issue. Mr. Frieda, do you have any opinion on this question of the back porch, covered porch?
No, it's more of an architectural feature.
Okay.
I understand the concern and the need to make the rooms all work properly. It's a minor variance.
Okay.
And I think it's one that the board, can easily consider.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions? Open this up to the public for questions to the architect. Okay, are there any?
I just had a hand up. Ms. Januzzi?
Hi, my name is Kim Januzzi from 608 Evergreen Avenue. I just had a question about the rear porch roof. And I believe this is the case, but it looks like it's covered by the second story. So there isn't a roof that juts out into the yard. So for example, it could be approved as a roof and then you build a deck on top of it, right?
I don't know if that's a question to me. That last sentence, could you repeat if it's approved that you could build a deck on top of it?
If I could, this is Jerry. I can answer a question. Yeah, you're correct. You cannot build a deck on top of the projection. No.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
There is, just to clarify, a minor, I think it's 2 feet, as you can see here, roof popping out. But, that's minor.
Yeah, I think the concern was, the porch area is mostly within the limits of the building outbound.
Yep.
So that's really the extent of it. So yes.
Mr. Shook?
Yes. On the plans, on the left side of the building where the driveway is, you show an electric meter over there. That whole area is going to be reconstructed, if I'm not mistaken. Is it? And if it is,
yes.
If it is, that means that electric meter is going to be removed. All the electric's going to be redone. As per the master plan, are you considering placing the electrical utilities underground? Because there's a pole right in front of the house.
I was not aware of that, and I have not given that any consideration. Unless the homeowners have looked at it further, I would assume that if we're required to, then we would. Other than that, and again, I'll let the homeowners weigh in here. I wouldn't want to say that they would if they don't have to. Rich and Michelle, do you have, oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say it's part of the master plan that all new construction or rebuilds, and if it's electrical is involved, which to me this is, the utilities should be placed underground, and that's what I would like to see.
Got it.
Eventually eliminate all the telephone poles in Bradley Beach, not in my time.
Mr. Shuck,
This
we're starting to get commentary now. So your question was about the utilities.
Yeah.
Right, and what's your address, by the way?
Oh, mine?
Yeah.
My 110 Fifth Avenue.
Thank you. So I don't know if the architect wants to speak to his client as to that issue, or.
Yeah, I'll let Rich and Michelle weigh in if they have any thoughts on that.
So this is a new bit of information for me. We have not contemplated moving the utilities underground. If that's a requirement, then we will certainly look into doing that and comply with it if that's part, but I have not seen that as a requirement up until this point.
And I would assume typically what happens, and these issues often come up in front of the board that I sit on, and the reality is if it's a requirement, then that would presumably get caught during building permit review and be something that we would have to, address at that point.
Hey, Jerry, any thoughts on that? I mean, is it required?
From the board's point of view, I don't know that you can require that. You can request it, yes. I don't know if you can require it. That's really more of a construction issue. And that would need to be addressed during construction with the construction department. I don't know that there's not an ordinance in our land use that says that needs to get done. But there are comments made in the master plan pointing us to go in that direction in the future. Our ordinances kind of have to catch up with the master plan.
Right. Okay.
Right now, it's a point whether the applicant and the architect choose to do it. There's no overarching
That's
requirement.
my understanding, unless during construction, there's a different interpretation.
Okay. That, the construction officials have looked at these plans already.
Well, but during construction, they'll do all the
Okay, no, this is the-
inspections.
All right,
That's all part of their purview.
okay. That's fair.
Let me ask a question. Is the electrical pole on their side of the street?
Let me see.
Yes, I believe it is.
Okay.
It's right in
One
front
right
of
in front of our house.
Yeah, yeah, I see it. Yeah, it's on the right side, it appears.
Any other comments? I'm sorry, questions? The architect from the public?
I'm looking for physical hands. I don't see any.
Okay. Very good. All set? Open up for public comment. Anybody from the board has any more questions?
Just this is a comment from a neighbor.
State your name and address.
Sure. It's JD Carabas and Sandy Chang.
How do you spell your last name?
So it's K-A-R-A, B as in boy, A-S as in Sam.
And what's your address, sir?
It's 406 rear Newark Avenue, as well as 103 and 105 Newark Avenue.
Okay, raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth tonight's proceeding?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I just want to comment that we've known Rich Michelle for 35 years. They're, good upstanding citizens. We've known the various homes that they've lived in over those 35 years. They keep their homes meticulous. I think that I view this as a very reasonable project that would enhance the overall town and the neighborhood. And it would be great to see it approved.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public?
Nope.
Nope, okay. Not seeing anything. Any questions from the board for any final questions of the board? Are they asked something from the applicant? Anything need to be added? Or wanting to be added?
No, nothing more from us.
Okay, very good. Well, now based on what we've heard, make a motion to approve the application with the variances requested. I understand regarding the so-called proposed roof porch on the back, that makes total sense, and it really is a minor variance. And I see no reason to change that. I guess the existing garage, the distance, looking at variance, the distance between the principal structure and the garage, and it's really not changing. It is what it is. There's not really any expansion of that. Mr. Kitrick, anything else I need to add to that one?
don't think so. I think, the utility issue was raised, but, that'll be subject to the construction official. So,
I don't know if we should go down that road. That's.
nope, it's not within our purview. And, if it's an issue, that'll be dealt with the construction department.
And I guess going forward, if we make suggestions and changing the rules and regulations, maybe that's where it goes.
We do have that end of the year report.
Yep, we do. And your second, please.
Second. Go ahead, Mr. Quinlan.
Mr. Quinlan?
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Critelli?
Yes, once again, I think it's an improvement to the neighborhood and to the town. Good luck with your new home.
Ms. Brunel?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Fuso?
Yes, it's a good project, good work, and these changes that you're asking for and the relief that you're asking for is certainly reasonable within the scope of what you're looking to do.
Mr. Wade? Oh, I'm sorry, he's recused.
He's recused.
Mr. Quinlan?
Yes, it looks like a good project. I hope it works out well. I'd like to see it when it's done.
And
Thank you.
Chair Mayor?
Yes, I also vote yes, and it's a nice design, and variances requested are very minimal. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you all very, very much. Have a wonderful evening.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike, you are in charge now. I have to recuse myself,
Okay.
and I'm going to also sign off as I did the last time.
Thank you,
Dennis.
Mr. Chairman.
Good night.
Have a happy Thanksgiving.
And thank you all. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
All
Take
right,
care.
enjoy.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Take care now.
Would
Mr. Wade is back.
Mr. Wade is back. Would we like to, does anybody need a restroom break right now, or would we like to slog on?
I say hand up.
Okay. Mr. Kitcher, can we adjourn for 5 minutes?
That's fine by me.
Okay, I move that we adjourn for 5 minutes and reconvene in 5. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Thicker, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
May I check to make sure that all of my witnesses are available?
Sure.
Mr. Murphy, are you on?
Yes.
Mr. Trevino, are you on? Al, are you on? Larry, you want to give him a call?
Sure. He may just be I'm here in the bathroom.
Oh, you're there, okay.
I'm
Ms.
here.
Coffin, Ms. Coffin, are you available?
Yes, I'm here.
Right. And Dr. Kotler and Mrs. Kotler, are you available?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Ms. Dickert, are we ready to call the roll?
I believe we are. I think everyone's back. Mr. Critelli,
Yes.
Ms. Brunel,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Sorry, I'm here.
okay. Mr. Wade,
Here.
Mr. Quinlan,
Here.
and Chair Fuso.
Here. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I know we have quite a group here this evening. again, we just ask that everybody treat everybody with dignity and respect. We're going to, Mr. Kittrick, do you have any opening comments, or should we proceed with Mr. Stone?
I do. Just a reminder that if when there's the question portion from the public of a witness, before you ask the question, your name and your address. Please try to remember that. And at some point in this application, there will be public comment, and that time it's name, address, and then I swear you in. So just a reminder as to that. Mr. Stone, you don't have any new witnesses, right? The witnesses that you were addressing before with their attendance are the same witnesses you had previously, correct?
That is correct.
All right, so all of the witnesses in this application, I know on behalf of the applicant and also our professionals, were sworn in at the start of the application, and they remain under oath. Everybody understand that? I'll take that as a yes. So, okay.
Just a couple of comments. May I, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. Take it away.
So first of all, I want to thank you all because, you know, this has been a rather long application, and I do appreciate that we have all gone through some procedural issues which substantially we have resolved. Time of the last meeting, or from the time of the last meeting, a couple of items have occurred. I want to just put that on the record. Number one, we have asked for and have been accommodated by the scheduling of a special meeting on December 1st. That meeting has been noticed, and in the event that we're unable to complete this application tonight, of course, it's our intent to continue on I think it's the 1st of December. As I understand that, we will have the entirety of that meeting, but let's hope that we can get through most of it tonight, if not all. In addition to that, at the suggestion, I think, of the chairman, there was a request, I believe, of Mr. Cohn, which was also suggested by either one or other members of the board, that we provide a revised architectural plan. And as well, we also have provided, as you can tell, I don't know if those items have been marked yet, but we have also done a 3D mock-up of what is the third level. And I think it was Mr. Affuso that wanted to depict on such a rendering the location of the mechanicals, as well as showing the height reduction, the compressed walls, as well as the mechanicals. And I think what I'm going to do, with the permission of you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Kittrick, and the other members, I would like to recall both simultaneously our engineer, Mr. Murphy, as well as our architect. And I will start with the engineer. That should be rather quick, but I want to lay the foundation as to how we presented these additional documents. May I ask Ms. Dickard whether or not those documents have been marked?
They can be marked. Yes, I have them.
Okay, and you have the numbers, I guess, Ms. Dickard, right?
While she's getting them, thank you very much on behalf of the board for providing this additional documentation.
Well, frankly, after you suggested it and we did it, frankly, I think it helps all of us to have a mind's eye view of what was being testified to. I thought it was a good idea. While she's looking for that, I might make another comment. The board, the applicant, I'm assuming Mr. Cohn or any other members of the public, have received a revised letter from the board professionals. The original letter, or there were actually two prior letters. One was June 9th of 2020. That was revised on August 12th, 2020. And the last revision, which the board should have, was revised on November 13th, 2020. And if you recall, we dealt with the two issues dealing with what was initially anticipated to be use variances, and as a result of modifications to the application, the request for use variances have been removed. Ms. Sticker, do you have those numbers yet for me?
I'm trying.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's hard when you're working on your dining room table.
Mr. Kitcher, can we move forward with the testimony and have these marked after the testimony, just as a means of?
Yeah, that'll be fine. Good,
Yeah,
good
and
idea.
I'll tell you how I'll do it so that the record is clear. I'll refer to the document itself, and then whenever we get the numbers, we'll add the numbers and the date. If that's okay. All right.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Stone.
Okay,
Please
so
proceed.
I'm going to call first Mr. Murphy. Mr. Murphy, are you available?
I am, yes.
I want you to remind you, as Mr. Kittrick told you, you remain under oath, correct?
I understand that.
And you've already been qualified by the board. You understand that?
Yes.
Recall at our last meeting, the board chairman suggested that that we provide some additional documentation. Recall that?
I do.
As a result of that, was it necessary for you and Mr. Trevino, the architect, to return to the site?
It was.
And when you returned to the site, the purpose of it was to make the modifications as was suggested by some of the board members with respect to the architectural plan?
Yes, on October 20th, the architect Alfredo Trevino, myself, Lawrence Murphy, Dr. Kotler, and Mr. Kotler's son met on site and went into the building and reviewed the condition of the building and discussed the board's modifications and what modifications we were going to make. And those were included in the plans in front of that were resubmitted.
Okay. And I believe that those plans by Mr. Trevino are dated October 28th, 2020.
Yes,
Do you have those plans in front of you?
I do.
One of the issues that was discussed both by Mr. Cohn as the objector, Mr. Affuso as the board chairman, and I believe other members of the board, they wanted a better view on the architectural plan with respect to the third level. You recall that inquiry?
I do, yeah.
As a result of that, did you and Mr. Trevino take a closer look at the third level?
We did, yes.
And can you describe, I may also require Mr. Trevino to do the same, but can you describe from the plan what was designed on the third level?
Yes, I can. So getting up to the third level was actually a challenge because there's no staircase, there's no direct access. So it required some gymnastics to get up there. What's shown is basically walls enclosing that the space between the eaves, and we laid out where the attic pull down stairs was going to go, and also where the HVAC unit could go and all the duct work. And once we started laying that out, we realized there's very, very little space up there for anything other than utility and probably very little storage.
Let's talk about that for a moment. You know, the issue that, one of the issues that we have to address is whether or not that third level is habitable or livable space. As a result of you physically examining that third level, is your opinion the same with respect to whether or not that third level could be livable space?
I think the architect addressed that in terms of building height, room height, ceiling height, and it doesn't comply with building code. If you're asking in terms of a layman's opinion, with the HVAC unit, the attic pull downstairs, and all of the ductwork, in my opinion, it wouldn't be habitable and usable.
Okay, then I see that Mr. Trevino prepared what is kind of a cool exhibit. It looks like it's a colored rendering of the area you just described.
So
do you
if someone
have
can
that?
give me over control of the screen, I can actually share that.
Go ahead. You have access.
Okay, thanks. I'm gonna have to find it though, but.
While you're looking for that, can you tell me again about the pull down stairs?
Yeah, the pull down stairs is located in the that attic space to create to basically get access up to it to service the HVAC unit and potentially put storage up there.
So there's no easy access up there, am I right?
There is no easy access up there. In this picture, if everyone can see this.
Okay, so let's identify it, because I'm not sure Ms. Stickard yet has a exhibit.
We can see
number.
it.
Okay, it's attic 3D view 1.
Okay, what are we looking at there, Mr. Murphy?
You're looking at a 3D rendered version of the attic space showing the pull down stairs in the foreground, which what looks like a folded up ladder, followed by in gray, which is the ductwork supply return. And then the large square in the back is a horizontal HVAC air handler.
The red crossbars, what are those?
So those crossbars were put in to give basically the red is potential ceiling joists that could be installed to make it clear. The height is 5'8", which building codes allows a higher height. But obviously, if you're 5'8", you're not going to finish that ceiling. It's very difficult to walk I know I would bump into that. So that's really a representation of what the ceiling height would be if we installed those red 2x4s. They're actually not red, but they're just been colored for discussion purposes.
Okay, it may be necessary for you to field some questions, but with Mr. Kittrick and the board chairman's permission, I'd like to call Mr. Trevino, if you'll allow me to do that now.
Certainly.
Al, can you hear me all right? Al? Mr. Trevino?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so you heard Mr. Murphy describe your plans. I want you to now, because are you prepared these plans at my request?
Yes, I did.
And Mr. Murphy said that sometime in late October, you and he met with Dr. Kotler and Dr. Kotler's son at the site. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct.
And based upon the time that we there, is it accurate to suggest that you went up into that third level in order to really get pretty good measurements of what was going on up there?
That's correct. We went up there and we actually took measurements and prepared these drawings to be accurate.
Okay, so maybe as the architect, can you describe what is depicted on your revised plan dated October 28, 2020?
Is this the plan or are we looking at the 3D?
I'm looking, I'm referring to the plan.
Okay, so let
That's
me
it.
just open up the plan.
Yeah, that's what I see in front of you.
I have it on the
Okay,
screen.
the hatch walls are the walls that will actually define the space of what we're considering the attic, which is 155 square feet. On the left-hand side, you'll see the attic unit, the HVAC unit with the ductworks feeding the spaces down below. And the only space that we had really available of ceiling area, which is where we would put the pull down stairs to service up the attic space for utilities.
And I think I see on the plan, on the right-hand side of the third level, it says attic pull-down stair.
Yes.
And it's marked, that's the location. You rendered an opinion earlier on in your testimony when we were before the board, it's a little redundant, but when we were before the board, as to whether or not that area on the third level is livable space. Do you remember that?
That's correct.
Do you have an opinion within architect?
With all of, with the HVAC unit, with all the ductworks, with the pull downstairs, there's very little space left for storage.
And on the, you prepared that color rendering of that third level?
Yes, I did.
Can you bring that up as well?
I can, yes.
Okay.
So what you actually see are the exposed 2x4s that are existing there. You'll see the windows that are on the eaves, and you're actually seeing the ductworks, the pull downstairs, and depicted in red is we suggested, just to make sure, even though 7 feet is, there's an area in the center of the attic that is 7 feet, and we suggested that if we put 2x4s at 32 inches on center at 5'8", then we just make sure that it's never going to be finished. Not that it really could, because there's all these ductworks that are there, but nonetheless we suggested to put that there just to make it clear that that's not going to be livable space.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I have on this issue, I have no further questions of either Mr. Murphy nor Mr. Trevino. So I don't know whether or not, based upon this additional testimony, they were asked a host of questions before, but on this issue, as to the third level, if anybody has questions, we're welcome.
Sure, let's do this. Let's address this issue. Members of the board, questions?
Yes. The red beams that are shown in the drawing, they're not structural, right?
No, they're not.
So they can be removed without any problem.
Yes, they could.
Okay.
Any other questions? Mr. Frieda, I guess I'll just ask you to comment on this, what your thoughts are on the living space in light of these changes.
I don't believe the area is habitable.
Okay.
As proposed. The pull down stairs doesn't permit you to really put anything up in that space of any size. And it's not conditioned space. So as is proposed, the attic space is definitely utilities and storage only.
Thank you, Mr. Frieda.
Anyone else from the board before we move to the public for questions?
Well, just before we go to the public, Mr. Cohen.
Yes, Mr. Cohen has his hand up.
Okay.
Mr. Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Yes, Mr. Trevino, I was wondering, based on this design here, it looks like you would have plenty of room to lower the roof height and still be able to maintain this unit up there. Is that correct?
The roof height?
Yes, the variance you're requesting.
Yes.
Okay. And when you designed this plan, I see on the new plan, it reflects space now open to below in what appears to be the living, dining, and over the staircase. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So are you removing, hello?
You're,
Are you removing structure?
No, it's existing like that right now.
Oh, it's wide open right now?
Yes, that's correct. It's actually a double volume space on both sides right now, the way it exists.
But if I go back to your plans dated from 7/16/20, that's not what it reflects. You're as built.
It was inaccurate. That's correct.
So your original plans were inaccurate to the board.
That's correct.
Okay, great. Getting back to that, your testimony on the dormers at the last meeting, you said that the dormers were the interior dimension based on your living space calculation or usable space for the third floor. You said 19.1 by 10'4". Is that correct?
I think that's what well, now we went to measure, so let me just check the plans. Hold on. The inside is 19.1 and it's 9 feet where the mechanical unit is. And on the other side, it gets narrower because there's a existing bump there, and it goes to 7'5".
Then why was your testimony at the last meeting 10'4"? Was that another error?
Probably.
Okay, great. Now, as per these dormers, could you tell me how far they're set back from the floor below?
The floor below. You mean from the front wall?
From the wall below, yes. From the east and
from
west
the front
wall of the second floor.
Okay, it's 12 foot 10 and a half.
No, that would be the north-south. I'm looking for the east-west wall.
I'm not sure you understand what you're talking about. From the front wall to
That would be the side walls, the east-west. So how far back is the third floor dormer wall set back from the floor below on the sides of the building?
Okay, so from the back, it'd be 9'5", 9 foot
No,
one and
from
a
the
half.
sides, from as I look at the building, the long ones on the sides.
You mean how long those walls are?
No. What I want to know is how far the third floor dormers are set back from the second floor exterior wall.
Alfredo, is the
Yes.
second floor wall in line or vertically aligned with the third floor dormer wall? Is the
No.
question.
Well, not where the attic is.
Where the dormers are.
I'm not sure I understand.
Is the dormer plate on top of the plate for the wall of the second floor?
Yes.
Okay, great. Are you familiar with the dormer ordinance for the Borough of Bradley Beach?
No.
Okay. The dormer ordinance requires a minimum of 2 foot setback from the exterior wall surface of the story below. So I'll leave that up to Mr. Frieda as to whether that's an additional variance. But it appears to me that it is. I don't know how it appears to you, Mr. Trevino.
I might point out that that was not recited in any report by any board professional.
That's why we have an open public hearing, sir.
What's your point?
all right, well, I'm sure we'll hear from Mr. Frieda. He'll get, right, he'll comment on it.
Well, I mean, this is Jerry. we did the review. If what Mr. Cohen is saying is true, that have been missed in our review. I'm not aware of that, but I could certainly look closer into it and find out. But during the course of our review, that wasn't something that we noted.
The definition of dormer is very specific, Mr. Frieda, and I believe.
I'm not denying or accepting. I'm just saying we'd have to look at it. We hadn't picked up on it earlier.
Great. And I had a question for Mr. Murphy while he was there.
Is that it for Mr. Trevino?
That's all I have for him. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Murphy, in terms of these dormers, what creates more air and light? Just a standard gable roof or a standard gable roof with two dormers?
It depends on which perspective you're talking about. Is it air and light for the building
neighbor,
inhabitant, or is
the
it for
neighbors.
adjacent properties?
For adjacent property owners, sir.
Are you talking about for shade on adjacent properties? I'm trying to think of the sun's orientation.
Let me ask you another question then, sir. Does the addition of the
Mr.
dormer?
Kittrick, I object
Wait
to
a
that.
minute. Yeah,
I'd like him to answer.
Do you want, if you have not withdrawn the question, and you can withdraw the question, it's up to you.
I'll withdraw that question.
Okay.
What adds more bulk to a building? Not having dormers or having dormers?
Obviously, if you have dormers, you're going to have more mass to a building. It takes up more volume.
Great. And does that affect the air and light?
It depends on what perspective you're looking at. If you have the sun in the east as it's rising, the dormer on the right doesn't affect any air and light on the left. The western dormer, depending on where the sun is and the angle, it doesn't. Sometimes of the day it does, but keep in mind that the projection of that shade is towards the back of the building, and probably sometimes is the shadows on top of the roof itself. So you may have a slight impact, additional impact because of the dormers, but it's going to be minimal towards the rear yard and a good portion of the time on the roof surface of this building below.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Murphy. That's all I have.
Okay, and I do have an addition. I just pulled up the ordinance for the dormer. It's the definition of a dormer is a gable projecting from a sloping roof that does not extend or exceed 10 feet in width and contain one or more windows set vertically, a minimum of 2 feet from the exterior wall surface of the story below. That's just the definition.
Yes, sir. And do you meet the definition?
It doesn't. My issue or contention there is it's not an ordinance that says that space has to be set back. It's just a definition that defines it. So we're calling it a dormer.
Yes, sir.
But it's not. I don't believe it's a violation of an ordinance because the definition says this. That doesn't meet that definition.
Yeah, what you built doesn't meet the definition of a dormer, does it?
That's not what, I object to that characterization. That is not what Mr. Murphy said.
All right, I'm going to interrupt both of you right now. It has nothing to do with this testimony. I want to go on the record for something. We're doing a Zoom meeting, obviously, because we're in a state of emergency. We all have to make accommodations. And one of the aspects of Zoom is they have a chat room. I'm going to ask the people to stop utilizing the chat room and making comments while either Mr. Stone is asking a question or Mr. Cohen is asking a question or people are testifying. If this was a live public meeting and you were speaking like that, you'd be asked to stop. So I'm going to ask you to stop. It's distracting. Is that helpful to anybody? And we'd like to get as much done this evening as possible. And that needless addition does not help the process for anybody. Mr. Stone, Mr.
Yeah.
Cohen, do you disagree with anything I just said?
No, I agree, sir. I think, you know, in the future, we should use a different format of Zoom.
Oh, well, that I just asked you if you agreed. That's it. I mean,
I agree,
this
sir.
is the
yes.
format. Okay, let's go.
Mark,
Yes.
I can disable the chat. Would you like me to do that?
Please.
Anybody have objection to disabling this chat?
On behalf of the applicant, I do not.
Mr. Cohen?
I don't object to that, sir.
Okay, let's do that.
I might point out to you, Mr. Kittrick, I wasn't aware what those little things were.
Yeah.
That must have been the chat room. Okay, may I ask a couple of follow-up questions?
Certainly.
Yeah. This is going to be directed to you, Mr. Murphy. So let's talk about what you now viewed as the definition of dormer. The issue that was brought up by Mr. Cohn, is that relevant to this application?
I just read the definition off out of the Bradley Beach definition. It's a gable projecting from a sloping roof that does not exceed 10 feet in width and contains one or more windows set vertically, a minimum of 2 feet from the exterior wall surface of the story below. I don't really have an opinion beyond that because there needs to be an interpretation of that, I think, by the board professionals, how and whether that applies, because it's just a definition.
So let me ask you this. If in fact the dormers created the need for an additional variance, would that be encompassed in the catch-all provision of the application and the notice?
Yes. I think just the definition doesn't necessarily require a variance for this, because there's nothing that says you can't have a dormer or you can't have a roof projection or there's not another ordinance that specifically prohibits what's on our plan. It's just a definition.
Okay, let's talk about air, light, and open space. Does the presence of the dormers have a significant impact upon air, light, and open space, or is it de minimis?
It's de minimis, and it's towards the rear of the property, and a substantial portion of it goes onto the roof, the roof below.
Okay, let's talk. There was an issue raised with the height of the building. Am I correct from the plans that we have that the topography of the property surrounding this structure is irregular? That is different on one side of the building from the other?
Yes, it varies depending on what side of the structure you're on. As I testified previously, the topography is lower at the beginning of the property and higher at the rear. So anytime you have that, when you have a level structure, the back of the structure is at a higher grade than the front of the structure.
So that depending upon where the measurement took place,
Yes.
Would the extra 6 to 8 inches be deemed significant or de minimis?
I think the excess height that the applicant's proposing is de minimis.
Mr. Kittrick, I have no further redirect of this witness.
Any other questions from the board for these witnesses on this matter of the third floor? I just have one. It's of the architect.
Yes.
It was pointed out that the plans there were two inaccuracies in two sets of previous plans. How do we know that these plans are indeed accurate?
I went out and measured them before. Actually, I was given a set of as-bills from the previous architect that passed away.
Okay. And in your expertise, I know this question of dormers has been brought up. The dormer itself, would that, I know it was added after the fact to the previous plans. Would that be considered, would you consider that a field change?
Would I consider it a field change?
Yeah.
I guess it could be. I mean,
Would you, yes, yeah, listen.
Yes,
Yes or no?
yes,
You would consider a dormer a field change? Okay.
yes. If it doesn't affect anything else, and you know, obviously, normally you make this field change to follow up with an as-built drawing, you know.
It's such a unique set of circumstances. It makes everything questionable. All right, Mr. Stone, are you?
Mr. Fusa?
Sure.
And I have to say this with as much respect as I can,
Sure.
but that last comment that you just made was an editorialization, an opinion that I respectfully would submit to you would be inappropriate. The fact that such a comment after the expert testified that it was his opinion that it was a field change, I would respectfully ask you not to make those comments.
Sure, no problem. I'm incredibly sorry if you feel I editorialized. Not a problem at all. I will refrain from that in the future.
Okay, my next witness is Miss Coffin.
I have another question.
Mr. Kittrick, is Mr. Cohen in order?
You're muted, Mark.
Yes, I realize that. I apologize. Go ahead, Mr. Cohen. What do you have a question or?
Yes, I have a question for Mr. Murphy. He just said that the property slopes lower in the front and gets higher in the rear. Is that correct, Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Okay, so in terms of the height that you just testified to, would that make the rear building even seem larger from the sidewalk than it really is?
Would it seem higher? Yes. Larger? No.
Okay, so the additional 9 inches would make a difference as you view it from the sidewalk, would it not?
It's not 9 inches. It's less than 9 inches. I object to that question because it's inaccurate.
Exactly how high is it? How much higher is it than the ordinance allows, Mr. Murphy?
It's a 0.8.
0.8 feet,
Yes.
which is how many inches?
.6 inches.
Thanks so much, sir. 9.6 inches. So would it make that 9.6 inch height advantage over the ordinance seem even greater because the slope goes up from the sidewalk if I'm on the sidewalk in front of the house?
I don't think you can see the difference of 9.6 inches from that distance, because as you move away from a structure, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller.
Because there's no grading plan submitted, do you have any idea of what the elevation is from the sidewalk as opposed to the front of the garage?
There were surveys submitted as beginning of the application that shows grades, I believe.
Well, I have the survey submitted and it only shows the points that were used to determine the average grade around the garage. There are no additional elevation points on that submitted document dated August 7th, 2019.
All right, give me a second to just take
So
a quick
I'm just
look.
wondering, are we going a little far afield from the testimony from tonight? I mean, you're entitled to ask him questions, but it's based on the testimony he gave tonight.
Those questions were asked and answered in the first
So, I mean,
testimony.
Well, he just made more testimony about the height, Mr. Kittrick, and I'm just questioning him on the height. He testified that the property is lower in the front than it is in the rear, which then exacerbates the elevation differential.
So the property is lower in the front versus the back. I do not have the exact grade.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Murphy. That's all. I have.
let's,
I have one more follow-up question. Is the height that you've testified to significant or de minimis?
It's de minimis.
I'm ready for Ms. Corcoran, Mr. Kitcher.
well, we have
Please
the members of the public who get to ask questions.
Oh, sorry.
So anybody from the public have any questions for either Mr. Murphy or Mr. Trevino?
I have a Dr. Tom.
Sorry, that's me. It's Dr. Tom McGuire, 610 Brindley Avenue. I just had a question for the architect. I'm looking at the 3D rendering and
Yes.
the walls that up there, are they finished or those are going to be all finished, correct?
They're exposed studs. They're exposed studs right now.
I know, but when it's done, like, are those going to be finished or is that going to be all?
No.
Look
The
into
inside will stay unfinished, and the space where we have a double volume will actually have drywall.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the
One
third
second.
floor?
Sheriff Fuso, 1 second.
Sorry.
Whose phone number is 732-610-6965?
Me.
Who's me?
This is Terrence Wright, 406 Madison Avenue.
Okay. Do you have a question
Yeah, I have several questions.
of the
This-
testimony just provided?
Yes,
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, repeat your name and address, please.
Terrence Wright, 406 Madison Avenue.
Okay, thank you.
Obviously, this discussion for Dr. Kotler's back house has been going on for a long time, too long. But my first question is, what is TJ Cohen's skin in this game? He's not within the 200-foot boundary. So
Excuse me,
why has he
Mr.
Why has he
Wright,
got an interest in this?
Mr. Wright,
Yes.
the questions are for either Mr. Murphy or Mr. Trevino.
I'd be happy to
Yes,
answer that, Mr. Kittrick, if you need me.
Well, you don't need to because it's not,
Okay, thank you, sir.
that's not the purpose of this. So if you have a question for Mr. Trevino or Mr. Murphy based on the testimony that was just given, you may do
Yes.
so.
What is the problem with 9 inches?
Who's that for?
Anyone who wants to answer it. You're just saying they've been 10 minutes debating 9.6 inches versus 8 inches versus high, low, at the back, the front. Who cares? We're talking about 9 inches. Can
Right.
anyone tell from the sidewalk looking at a house that it's 9 inches above code?
So
I
Mr.
don't think
Murphy, Mr. Murphy, do you want to answer that? Or
I do. Based on the perception and the distance, as you move further away from an object, it becomes smaller and smaller. I would not be able to tell whether that was an extra 9 inches or a foot. I don't think I would start seeing a perception until I was a couple feet.
So why are we debating this?
I don't think that's a proper question for him. He's a witness. He's here to testify as to issues such as that. He asked the question. Any other question for his testimony tonight? Questions about his testimony?
No, nothing about his testimony, only that everyone wants to get conversation into this matter, and Mr. Cohen seems to be dictating this thing. Every time there's a meeting, it goes from 1 hour to 2 hours.
Listen,
How much time do you get
Pluralize it,
allotted?
sir. I object.
Right.
I object,
Can we-
Mr. Kittrick.
Yeah,
You can object. You can object all you like.
Christie, we could mute Mr. Wright, please.
Okay.
So once again, so it sounds like maybe, I don't know if he speaks for anybody else, but would like this proceeding to move on and finish up. And those are the type of things that make that more difficult. So I'm going to repeat this again. We have witnesses tonight. They're going to testify. And every member of the public who's listening to this application tonight is absolutely entitled to participate and ask questions of those witnesses, but only those witnesses. You ask questions regarding testimony. Now, at the end of this proceeding, every member of the public has the absolute right to comment on the application. And you do that under oath. That is sworn testimony. And if you have any comments on the application at that time, you're free to do that. But that is not the purpose of this evening's questions of witnesses' testimony. So, if I need to repeat that later on, I'll be happy to do so, but hopefully we could just keep moving on. Chairman?
We have a request for another witness for the applicant, so I would suggest.
I still have questions.
I'm sorry, Ms. Dietrich.
Yeah, it was
Questions of
that
public.
Mr. Wright's phone, because he was participating by phone, so it kept chiming in and we couldn't hear anybody. So I have Ms. Januzzi has had her hand up.
Ms. Januzzi, please.
Hi, Kim Januzzi, 608 Evergreen. I just had a question. I'm looking at the attic 3D view and the red beams that are running across the top. And so I think somebody asked the question earlier about whether these are structural, and I think the answer was no. And if they're not structural, what is the purpose of those beams?
To identify the fact that it can never be used because of the fact that they actually give you even a more reduced ceiling height.
Right, but if the beams weren't there, what would the height be?
And only in the center part for about 10 feet of it, of the 19 feet would be 7 feet.
Right, so 7 feet is livable space, right?
That's correct.
You can stand up for,
Yes.
okay. And the beams don't need to be there. So
That's
it's
correct.
possible, okay, thank you.
I have Ari.
Ari, please.
Yes, hi. So Ari Bluff, 700 Beach Avenue. Two questions. I think both witnesses mentioned the term de minimis, and I would just like to understand it better in terms of, how this would be relevant and presumably, know what the words mean, but if you could explain the category and how that affects board decisions. And then my second question was just how this compares to other things in town, and if there are other examples of things that have been a matter of inches over that have been built.
Richard, would you like me to field this?
Larry, you go ahead.
So to give you an idea, so let's say you have a 10-foot setback and you're 3 foot into the setback or 4 foot into the setback, that's significant. If you're if you have a 100-foot setback and you're 30 foot, 40 foot, that's significant. The smaller and smaller percent that you go, so instead of, let's say 10, you're, a half a foot, 9 inches in, it's fairly de minimis. When you're 100-foot height and you're over by, a couple feet, that's fairly, limited. But as the square footage gets smaller and smaller, or if you're 1 foot and it's a larger percent deviation, it's more significant. So a de minimis exception is where it's not perceivable or barely perceptible to the public, to the trained or untrained eye. And that would be my opinion of what de minimis is. And we run into this a fair amount where in my practice where I'm doing something and there's a survey that's done and someone tried to construct a building exactly at the setback line, like 10 feet, and they're, 9.5 or, 9.75, and you're just a little bit off. To me, that is de minimis.
And in your experience, what happens, just because I'm new to all of this, what happens typically as that relates to zoning when, does your categorization tend to match up? And, it makes sense to me. I'm just trying to.
So it's too difficult a question to really answer because it varies town by town, and it also varies by the particular ordinance or requirement we're talking about. If you're, let's call it short one parking space, that's a lot more significant than if you're over by 9 inches on height, or you're over by, you know, you're reduced, your buffer's not 50 foot, but it's 49. It's very specific to the ordinance regulation we're talking about. Also the town and the town sensitivity to that particular issue. So you have to take a lot of that into account. And it's not black and white.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't see any other hands. Christie, am I wrong?
Dave Critelli.
Mr. Critelli, please.
I'm sitting here staring at the red beams that were just brought up, and I'm looking at sheet A1. And the way I see it, the upstairs is roughly about 3/4 of it is occupied by HVAC ductwork and stairs. The red beams that would be put in at 5'8" would they not potentially be a liability when a contractor would have to go up there to work on HVAC?
Yes.
We all know at some point in time, your heating, air conditioning either requires maintenance or replacement or whatever. But 5'8" is not a very high clearance unless you're a rather short contractor.
Well, normally this is done in crawl spaces that are 2 feet as well. And again, that's not an issue. And there's no restriction as far as how much, it's just basically about how comfortable it is, but it isn't a liability issue.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I'm just looking for some physical hands, scrolling through all of the participants. I do not see any, and I don't see any virtual.
Excellent. All right. Mr. Stone, now, am I to assume that we are done with questions concerning architectural drawings and the third floor?
That is correct. Just
All right.
wanted- Yes.
Do we want to move to the second floor, first floor, or do you want to call a different witness?
No, I think that we covered all of that in our, if you recall, in our last presentation. In order to eliminate any use variances, we eliminated the bathroom on the first floor. And we had to address the livability of the third level. So those items have now been covered, and consistent with the board's professionals, the use variance portion that was part of the original application no longer necessary, and we're dealing strictly with bulk. And for that purpose, I'm calling Ms. Coffin the applicant's planner.
Okay, so for the purposes of the board and the audience, there then are, I want to make sure, because I too was confused. There are no other questions from anyone pertaining to any architectural drawing or any engineering rendering. All right, I just have one question, because I too was confused about this. When you look at the first floor, the existing laundry, are those the conditions as they are right now?
Larry, can you or Al answer that?
Larry, can you answer that?
I can, yeah. So it's stud space. There's a wall. The wall does project if you're looking at the existing laundry, you see the dryer on the left, or the washing machine on the left, the dryer on the right. Those aren't there. It's studs. And then the wall on the right extends to about where the wall on the left goes to.
Okay.
And it actually is an enclosed space. So that missing wall section that's not shown on this drawing will be removed as part of this application, as if this application's approved, that
Okay.
would.
What's the
would-
floor?
It's concrete.
It's concrete. And you guys had planned on making that a bathroom previously?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a sewer line underneath that, correct?
There is a sewer line underneath it, but if you look at the second floor, you see the bathroom right above it. There's a sewer line that comes down and
Okay.
comes in the left wall. And
Okay.
that's the reason we're keeping that wall, is because there's a sewer line servicing a bathroom on the second floor where it's permitted to be.
So potentially there could be another bathroom just installed there.
Yes, but that's true in any, you could put that anywhere, or any application, any applicant could do it, or homeowner could install it wherever there's a sewer line.
But
you-
Larry, one
You do
thing,
need building permits for it.
Larry, there was an actual drain line where there was going to be a potential toilet, and that has since been removed and actually concrete in.
Yes, I believe that was discussed previously.
Right.
Yes.
Can I address that, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
In one of the earlier hearings, and I don't remember if it was the first or the second, I believe it was you who raised that concern about the sewer line.
Yes.
And one of the things that was addressed, and I asked the experts to verify that one of those outlets was concreted over to address your concern. But we
Okay.
couldn't remove the pipe in the wall because it services the bathroom on the second floor.
Certainly. Okay, so this rendering here is substantially what it is right now, but it's not exactly what it is right now, right? All right, now,
Correct.
one other question. I know there was issues raised about the differentiation between the two-car garage and the walk-in door, et cetera. The plan right now is the plan that I see, a single garage door and a single walk-in door. That is what we're anticipating is on site now and would be part of the final project if this project is approved.
Yes, that's what's existing now.
All right. So the only difference, if I were to walk in here, that's different is that right-hand wall where it says existing laundry would be coming out parallel to the left-hand wall, correct?
And then closing the box, the laundry room, going left to meet the existing wall, the wall
Sure.
that's there.
Okay, so basically the laundry room's boxed in, that's it.
Yes.
All right. And, okay, so by doing that, does it affect the ability to park a car in that garage? Because I believe that the prior testimony was that you could basically make it kind of like a parallel park K-turn kind of a thing to get onto the other side of that garage.
It improves the maneuverability in the garage.
By having the wall coming out further.
By removing that boxed in laundry room. A portion of the boxed in laundry room.
So wait a second. Now I'm confused. The wall on the right-hand side, is that coming out or is the wall on the left-hand side going back?
So previously that laundry room was boxed in.
Okay.
And what was done was walls were removed to
Which
open that
walls?
space up.
Which walls?
I wish I'll zoom in.
Okay.
Basically, I wish I could mark it up, but at the bottom left-hand corner of that section right there.
Yep, gotcha.
Goes to the right.
Yep.
Just above the 9 and 5 and 5.5, and then goes up to connect to this wall right here.
Okay, so
that's what's there.
Pan out a sec. All right, perfect. All right, so you have the line across the bottom that says 9 feet 5.5 inches, and you're
And
going
that's
to
a
walk
dimension.
that. You're going to walk that wall. You're going to walk back from that line 3.5 feet. Is that correct? Where the end of the wall on the left is shown.
Yes, about there.
Okay. And then you're going to extend the wall on the right out to parallel the wall on the left, correct?
Yes.
And then you're going to box that off.
Yes, that's what's there today.
That's what's there today.
And what we're removing is what's not boxed in. Does that make sense?
I must be dense. All right. If I walked in there today, is there a room with 4 walls or is there a room with a J-shaped wall?
There's
If
a
I
room
walked
with
in today,
4
am I
walls.
looking at what I'm seeing in my on my computer screen, or am I looking at a shoebox?
What's there right now is 4 walls boxed in.
So you got 4 walls boxed in. So you're actually removing this wall. So theoretically, you could bring the nose of the car up very close to the washing machine and back into that other corner. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, you can. So there's more space for cars to maneuver.
Do you find that acceptable, Mr. Fusa?
I want to be able to answer that question without editorializing. So.
Was that a sarcastic response?
No, it was a truthful response. It was a truthful response. Because we have a situation here that is odd. We have a building that's already built that you are now asking for relief on. There is clearly a lot of folks that are on a bunch of different sides of this. So there is a great interest in this question. And you've provided us documentation that is not necessarily always the case. If this stuff was correct and we knew it was, we wouldn't have to be so difficult asking these questions. But in my opinion, there is a gulf between what has occurred and what we're trying to make occur. And I'm trying to bridge that gulf. And I'm actually trying to bridge that gulf to the satisfaction of everyone. And I think that's what the board is trying to do. But when we have architects that come here and tell us plans are wrong, I don't necessarily know the credibility of the plan that I'm looking at.
I'd like to answer that. Those of us who recall, who knew Mickey, the former architect, when the application was originally designed, Mr. Contasenti was the architect. And for those who recall, you know, he sat on your board for decades. When the application was proceeding, Mr. Contasenti was still alive. And frankly, we all relied upon his specs as accurate. When it was necessary to bring in another architect because of Mickey's passing, the initial application was predicated upon the accuracy of Mickey's design. Because you suggested that we do something more accurate, we sent back the architect who physically did measurements and provided you with a credible, accurate design plan. And that's what you have in front of you. The reason nobody ever denied that the as-built was inconsistent with the original approval. At the very start of this application, I explained that that's what brought us here, that there was a problem and we were trying to respond to the various inquiry of you in particular and other board members in order for there to be a give and take. So what do? Those who were concerned about the third level, we've now, in my opinion, respectfully, we've satisfied that that is not livable space unless you want to stand on the ductwork and duck underneath the headers. Nobody can live in the third floor. And I remind you, there's a fold down stair. There's not even room there to place any boxes. Number two, there was an issue on the first floor. You were concerned that there would be a bathroom on the first floor, right? So in order to address that issue, we removed the bathroom, and you were even concerned about the enforcement because of the sewer pipe in the ground.
Correct.
What happened? In response to your inquiry, it was concreted over. Now, there only remains a few variances. They're all bulk variances under the C2 provision of the municipal land use statute. And we're about to address those.
That would be wonderful.
Okay, now, but short of knocking the building down, which I hope you're not asking, I believe that those variances that remain, and I'm going to use the word that has been described, de minimis. And you're going to see that there have been an improvement in some of the earlier required nonconformity.
Okay, all right, okay.
I understand that. And I respect that.
Yeah. Let's hear some testimony. That's. What do you got next?
I got one question. Hold on, please.
Mr. Quinlan.
The way the drawings that was there of the garage, you could literally put 3 cars in there, couldn't you? One in front of the laundry room, one to the right, and one to the left. With a little maneuvering. Is that true or not?
Well, Mr. Murphy, can you answer that?
It depends on the size of the cars. With enough jockeying,
Exactly.
you can. What?
Exactly.
Yes. So I think it's feasible to fit multiple things in there, potentially 3 vehicles, depending on the size and the configuration. Although I'll go back to my original opinion, which is it will not be used to park a single car. It will be used to place storage in there, which most people use it as. And there's 5 parking spaces outside, which is ample for the building and the apartment itself. So I think it'll be used for storage, and it won't even be used for parking or storage of vehicles.
Thinking and doing, that's 2 different things.
Agreed.
Excuse me, it's Jerry Frieda. Just one comment. Although there's been a lot of discussion, you really cannot fit more than 2 cars in that garage, and it would be very difficult at that. So do not consider the garage 3 cars. Can never get them in there.
Thank you, Mr. Frieda. All right, do we have Mr. Stone? It is your turn, I believe, to present our next witness.
Yeah, I'm calling Allison Coffin. I don't remember if she was sworn in. I think she was, but I don't.
She was, I swore.
All right.
As we stated right at the beginning of this meeting, all of your professionals were sworn in, and you agreed that had happened. So
Okay,
just make the record.
Allison, are you with us?
Yes.
Okay. Will you state your full name, please?
Allison Coffin, spelled Coffin.
And I presume you've been qualified before this board, but nevertheless, I'd like to spread your qualifications upon the record. Do you mind doing that for us?
No problem. I have a bachelor's degree from Boston College. I'm a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey. I'm also certified by the American Institute of Certified Planners. I've had my license and certification for 17 years now. In that 17 years, I've been accepted as an expert in front of more than 90 communities throughout the state, primarily Monmouth, Ocean, and Middlesex counties. I have appeared in front of this board several times, most recently for the Charette's application for the use variance for their garage apartment.
Ms. Coffin, you're certainly qualified.
And Ms. Coffin, you recall you were sworn in at a previous meeting, correct?
Yes.
Now, you're going to provide us planning testimony tonight?
Yes, I hope so.
Finally, we're going to do some of that. So in doing that, will you lay some foundation? I take it you visited the site, you're familiar with Bradley Beach, and I take it you're familiar with the zone and such?
Yes.
So why don't you give the board the benefit of what you did in order to prepare an opinion in regard to this application?
Well, to prepare for tonight, I met with the applicant, I met with the prior architect, I discussed it with the current architect, discussed it with the engineer. I visited the site, looked at the zoning ordinance, read the professionals' reports, and have sat through all of the hearings up to this point. The property that we're looking at, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, please.
The property is a 7,081.89 square foot lot fronting on Monmouth Avenue. The lot contains a 2-story dwelling, a detached garage, a swimming pool, a patio, and a driveway. And the applicant is requesting approval for a garage with accessory apartment in a structure that has been partially completed. The site is located in the R1 zone, which is a single-family dwelling zone. Garage apartments are a permitted accessory use in this zone on all but corner lots. As far as bulk variances, there are 2 existing bulk variances for the front building, which are not impacted by the garage apartment, and that's for the front yard setback and the side yard setback. Lot coverage, 60% is permitted. The existing lot coverage is 77.5, and with the proposed conditions, it's reduced to 77.2. The accessory rear yard setback, 5 feet is required. The prior garage had been at 4.77 feet, and the proposed / existing garage is at 5.2 feet. So that condition had been eliminated. And the side yard setback for an accessory structure is 5 feet. The prior garage had been at 2.79 feet, and the current garage is at 4.8 feet. So there's an improvement to that condition. And for the accessory height, 25 feet is the limit, and the garage is at 25 feet, 8 inches, which is a de minimis variance. The accessory side yard setback is also a de minimis variance. There's a swimming.
For a moment, if you allow me, of the pre-existing nonconformities, I take it from some of your testimony that the applicant's proposal, even though it's an as-built, that there's been an improvement or an elimination or reduction of some of those requirements?
Yes, there's been an improvement to lot coverage, an elimination of the accessory rear yard setback, and an improvement to the accessory side yard setback.
Terrific. Can you discuss the requirements of a garage apartment?
Sure. There are specific requirements in your ordinance for a garage apartment. The maximum garage floor area for the first floor is 800 square feet. This conforms. The maximum apartment floor area on the second floor is 600 square feet, and this conforms. There's a maximum of 1 bedroom. This conforms. It requires garage and common area only on this ground floor, and this conforms. And living accommodations on the second floor only. This now conforms. A maximum building height of the accessory structure of 25 feet, and there's a variance for this of 9.6 inches. A maximum eave height of the garage of 8.19 feet conforms. A minimum number of internal parking spaces. 2 spaces are required. Now the garage has enough space inside it for 2 cars to park, but 1 door. So we're requesting a variance for the technically because there's only 1 garage door as opposed to 2, although there is space for 2 cars inside. Second floor porches or balconies are not permitted. This conforms. Exterior staircases are not permitted. This conforms. And garage apartments are not permitted on corner lots. And this is not a corner lot.
Okay, I think you've covered that. Let's talk about your analysis now.
Yes.
I think that the first question, you agree with me that by eliminating the bathroom on the first floor and establishing that the 3rd level is non-livable, that removes the need to request a use variance?
Yes, there is no use variance required for this application.
And just make sure that the record is clear, should it be reviewed. The standard for requesting and obtaining approval of a use variance, it is significantly more difficult than a C variance?
Yes.
Okay, maybe you can explain that a little bit, not for the board, because I'm sure they're familiar with it, but I want to make sure the record is clear that we don't need a use variance, and a C variance, in this case, a C2 variance, the standard of that as opposed to the use variance is different and less substantial. Can you explain
Well,
that?
yes, a D variance has a higher standard of proof. It also requires a supermajority of the board's votes. So you need 5 affirmative votes for a use variance where you only need a majority of the board that's voting to grant a C or bulk variance.
Okay, so then let's go into the
variance.
I'm sorry. Yes.
The variances that the applicant's looking tonight are all C variances, and there are 2 tests within the municipal land use law for this type of variance. The first, the C1 standard, it's commonly referred to as a hardship variance, is not applicable to this application. The second standard, the C2 variance. It's sometimes called a flexible C variance, and it's justified when the purposes of the municipal land use law are advanced by the deviation from the ordinance requirements, and the benefits of the deviation substantially outweigh any detriments. It's my opinion that the variance relief that's being requested tonight can be granted under the C2 standard. The variances for this garage apartment advance the purposes of the municipal land use law. With regard to purpose A, to encourage the municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of all lands in the state in a manner which will promote the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. The development that's proposed is an appropriate use of this land. Purpose C, to provide adequate light, air, and open space. The proposed structure eliminated the rear yard setback variance and improves the side yard setback variance for the garage from 2.79 feet to 4.8 feet, which is now a de minimis deviation. The proposed structure, therefore, increases light, air, and open space to the adjacent properties. Purpose E is to promote the establishment of appropriate population densities and concentrations in a manner which will contribute to the well-being of persons, neighborhoods, communities, and regions, and preservation of the environment. Though this structure requires some bulk variances, the garage apartment provides for an appropriate population density as it is a permitted use on this lot. Purpose G is to provide a sufficient space in appropriate locations for a variety of uses, including residential uses, and the applicant is proposing an appropriate use in an appropriate location, so sufficient space is being provided for that use. And purpose I is to promote a desirable visual environment through creative development techniques and good civic design and arrangement. The proposed structure is designed to match the front home, and once completed will be visually attractive. And purpose J is to prevent.
Wait, I want to stop you for 1 second. Does the front of the house have solar?
Yes, it does.
And you know that the proposal of the applicant is to put solar on the rear house as well, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Purpose J is to prevent urban sprawl and degradation of the environment through the improper use of land. The garage apartment with variances allows for 2 units on the site, which is consistent with the intent of the zoning ordinance and helps prevent urban sprawl. And then there's purpose N, which is to promote the utilization of renewable energy resources. The proposed structure will support solar panels. The variances can be granted without significant detriment to the neighboring lots and public good. The front and side yard setbacks to the front home are existing conditions which are not altered or impacted at all by the garage apartment. Some of the existing variance conditions are eliminated or approved. That rear yard setback to the garage is now fully conforming. The side yard setback is increased from 2.79 feet to 4.8 feet, and the impervious coverage is decreased from 77.5% to 77.2%. The number of garage parking spaces. Though this garage does not provide for access to 2 full interior parking spaces because it has only 1 garage door, the floor area provided meets the intent in terms of having the total floor area, which many homeowners do use for storage, especially of pool equipment in the winter, and this is a property with a pool. But in addition to that, the lot provides more than the required off-street parking, even without having access to the second garage parking space. 4 parking spaces are required, and the property as proposed has 6. And that height of 9.6 inches over the permitted 25 feet is a de minimis variance. It is not significant enough to have any impact offsite. There's also a variance for the setback to the pool from the garage, and this has no detriment to the neighbors or the public. The benefits of the variance substantially outweigh any detriments. The benefits of this structure include advancing the purposes of the municipal land use law, a garage apartment with a single car door and a man-sized door, which provides for safe ingress and egress for the resident of the dwelling. There is no detriment created by these variances, therefore the benefits outweigh the detriments. Approval of the variances would not substantially impair the intent and purpose of the master plan and zoning ordinance. The application brings the site more into conformity by the elimination of the existing rear setback variance, the improvement of the side yard setback variance, and the reduction in impervious coverage. The use and residential density is permitted, and despite the variance request for the garage space, more than the necessary parking is being required. So for those reasons, it's my opinion that reasons do exist for the granting of the variance. They can be granted without detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the public, and the granting of these variances would result in the improvement of the site in a manner which is consistent with the intent of both the master plan and the development ordinance.
Thank you.
Excellent. Can I ask folks to mute their phones, please, and mute their computers? We are getting some feedback. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Coffin.
You're welcome.
Mr. Stone, any questions?
I don't.
You don't. Questions from the board?
Question,
Mr. Quinlan?
what can be done to improve the groundwater swell removing, by removing some of the driveway? Can that be done as an improvement? And get the,
That might,
get the number more back in line with 60%?
that might be a question for the engineer. I don't know if we can do that without impacting circulation at the back of the site for vehicles.
Well, that's what I'm trying to find out.
Mr. Stone, do you still have your engineer on?
Sure. Larry, you there?
I am, yes.
Are you able to answer that question for Mr. Quin? Is it okay if I ask him that?
Sure.
Can you answer the question, Mr. Quinlan? Did you hear it?
Hold on. I did hear it. You're talking about reducing the impervious coverage back to 60%.
Not 60, but make an improvement.
So I believe we are. I think we're going from 5,487 feet to 5,464 square feet, but I would also call that de minimis improvement. So we're improving it by 23 square feet.
But it's an improvement, not.
It is an improvement, yes.
Is there any way that we could, Mr. Murphy, following up on Mr. Quinlan's question, is there any way that we can, is there any kind of different material that could be used to create a more market improvement?
So there's a technology out there. There's permeable pavers, which you can underlay with stone. If the purpose is to get improved groundwater absorption or recharge into the ground, there's one type of material. If it's for visual appearance and we'll call it heat gain, that's another. So I guess impervious surface has a couple different aspects that boards like to minimize. So are you trying to minimize the mass appearance, or are you trying to minimize the environmental concern that some boards may have with it?
I'll yield to Mr. Frieda on that one.
Yeah, if I could. So the reduction, just as you look at the building height, the applicant is proposing that as de minimis. It's the same applies to the impervious coverage, where you're only talking about 30 square feet that's being removed of impervious coverage, and that is de minimis as well for this size lot. I don't know where you could go to make much of a difference. I'm not familiar with, the property and how it's all laid out. Remember, this application went through another set of eyes and boards. We only got into it when it came back to Bradley Beach. But there is an area along the east side of the house. Probably measures out less than 3%, but I don't know what's there. The air conditioning condenser unit is there. If that's an impervious material, could that possibly be pulled up and replaced with, a lawn area?
You're talking about the east side of the house?
Yeah. I'm just looking at areas where we could possibly do it that does not conflict with the way the property is used.
I'm looking at a picture that I took, and I believe it's permeable right now.
That is permeable.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there, you would, in order to make, I don't think you can make a substantial change in the impervious. We would be stealing a little bit from multiple areas.
And I don't know where and how you could do that. That little strip along the garage, it says extend pavers to meet garage. You know, what is that?
We're actually reducing the amount by bringing, because the garage is 30 feet deep instead of 20, we actually are reducing pavement on the left side of that from the existing face to the forward face.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah, no, it's difficult, and there's really not one thing you can point to say, hey, would you take up, 20 square feet of pavement here and 30 square feet of driveway there? There's really nothing to point to.
What about the papers in front of the driveway, the garage door that's now a door, or was a garage door?
So in front of the man door?
Yeah.
Those are pavers.
Is there any way to extend and please correct me if I'm wrong, don't you get half credit for pavers?
No.
Here? We don't,
No.
I'm sorry.
No, and the reason for that is over time, the proper maintenance isn't done. And they become just like a sheet of concrete.
Okay.
Okay, so we don't give credit for that.
Okay.
Porous pavers, as was mentioned before, we don't give credit for that because the maintenance on that is, it requires a lot of diligence, and who's to say anyone's going to ever keep up with it?
Okay. So on this question, I guess we're kind of stuck where it is. There's no improvements really to be made.
Yeah, unless the applicant can point to a spot where he could take up some pavers and put in, a turf area, that's fine. I can't see any. I don't know the property well enough to suggest it.
I would anticipate, having been to the property, we can find 15, 20, 30, square feet, maybe 40 square feet. But if you're looking for 100, 200, we're not going to be able to find it on the site.
Right. Right. But even at 20 feet, 30, 40 feet, it goes a long way. And it is consistent on what we've been doing with applications before the board. So if those small spaces could be found, it would be very helpful.
Well, I have a suggestion. I direct this, I guess, to the chairman and to Mr. Kittrick. But if the application is approved and the board professionals feel as though by recapturing 20, 30, 40 feet of pervious coverage, then I would suggest that the engineers work with each other to find such an area. And I haven't spoken to my client, but I'm sure that he would agree to making that a condition of approval.
Well, I would prefer that discussion happen before there's a decision. So,
I'm agreeing to that then.
Does the property have a history of problems with water retention? Based on the way it is now with the coverage?
My understanding, this is Jerry, that there is no history. However, it is consistent with how we have looked at every review before us that's over on impervious coverage, that we look to find some means to reduce that number. So it's consistent with the board's doing. I've worked with, as suggested by the applicant's attorney, I have done that in the past and worked with the applicant's professionals afterwards to try to reduce that number. In many cases, it's been productive. And I would do that again if the board directed me to.
So might I offer a suggestion that perhaps there be that discussion before the December 1st special meeting?
I'm hoping that we get done tonight.
Yeah, I know you're hopeful about it, but we got to keep making progress. We're getting a little diverted. We had planner's testimony and we're back to engineering questions, which are all good questions.
Mr. Quinlan, are you satisfied with that answer?
No, not really. I'd like to see something more done, including removing some of the driveway.
My client informs me that they've not had a water issue on the property, but that if removing 20, 30, or 40 or creating more pervious coverage, he will accommodate that. And Larry, I direct this to you. Dr. Cotler suggests that in front of the man door, that there's an area that can be removed to make it pervious. Is that correct on the engineering plan?
Yes.
Can
I'm
you-
just looking at areas right now around the property where I think can be reasonably, taken out. And I think we can easily do that 30 square feet. We probably can do 50 or 60 with a little bit of removal in certain areas. I think it's going to be hard to hit that 100 number, but I would say that we definitely can hit the 30. We probably can come close to 60 or 70.
So, Mr. Kitchuk, what I would suggest is, again, I take it from your comment that you don't think we're going to finish tonight, but
Yeah, shocking. So I'm trying to, we keep getting, we're going back to issues that have absolutely nothing to do with the testimony of Ms. Coffin. And they're good questions and they're important, but that slows the process down. So this is what we have in front of us, Mr. Stone, since you keep bringing up finishing tonight. We have, there may be additional questions of Ms. Coffin. Mr. Cohen has the right to cross-examine her. There are questions from the public. And then Mr. Cohen has the right to call his witnesses, and I know he, at the very least, has a planner. Mr. Stone has the right to cross-examine that. The board has the right to ask questions. The public has the right to ask questions. And assuming there are no other witnesses, the public, and we have a lot of the public here, has the right for comment on the application. And that is not going to be a quick process, nor should it be. So,
you've convinced me that we're not going to finish tonight.
well, I mean, I'm just trying to be realistic. You keep bringing it up. I'm just trying to be realistic. That's all.
Mr. Stone, I wanted to finish tonight also, but I concur with the council. I just don't think we're going to get there. But I'd like to try to clean up as many of these issues as we can.
Yeah.
I know Mr. Cohen, I owe him an apology. He had his hand up. I will get to you, Mr. Cohen. Are there other members of the board that have a question for Ms. Coffin? None. All right. I just have one question on the issue of de minimis to hopefully put this in some level of context. Based on my calculations, the difference between 25 feet and 25 feet 8 is 4%. Seems correct,
Yes, seems correct.
right?
Yes.
And it seems as if the difference on the setback on the side is around 6%.
Yes.
So as far as percentages and visual appearances, 4 and 6% do appear to be de minimis. Do you concur?
I concur.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Cohen, I know you had a question previously, and I know this is a bit out of order, but it is, a unique circumstance. So please, Mr. Cohen.
Sure, thank you. I was raising my hand about Mr. Frieda's comments. And I was just wondering, Mr. Frieda, are pools counted in impervious coverage in Bradley Beach?
No, because they hold the water where the rain falls within them.
So
Now, it
they're
is true that if they're not maintained, they could overflow.
But they don't count in impervious coverage.
I don't believe so, but I can double check.
Okay,
If you give me some
could,
time.
that would be great. I would
Yep.
appreciate that. And on this impervious coverage issue, I have one question. There was a building permit issued to build the original structure, which was approved for zoning. But that was approved and there was no mention of the impervious coverage. How does that happen?
Yeah, if that's to me, I don't know. We were not involved in the beginning part of the project. It was taken out of town. So I can't comment on any of that. And I do apologize for a couple of things that we maybe weren't prepared for tonight because of that reason. But I'm doing the best that I can with this. But I will check that number on the pools. I don't have it in front of me. If I find it, I will bring it up tonight. If not, I'll bring it up at the next meeting.
Thank you, sir. And then,
You're welcome.
Getting back to the original approval without a variance request for the impervious coverage. So apparently the zoning officer made an error when he did that?
I really couldn't say. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I do have some questions for Ms. Coffin, Mr. Chairman, if it's appropriate.
Please, Mr. Cohen.
Are we, just
Wait.
before you, are we
Sorry.
done with the board's questions of
Oh, sure.
Ms. Coffin? Just before we,
Yeah, I don't think we had any more.
okay, very good. Thank you.
Mr. Cohen, please.
Ms. Coffin, when you, in your open, you described the main dwelling as a two-story structure. It appears to me to be a three-story structure, or a 2.5 at least.
Well, then 2.5. It's an
Okay.
existing structure. We're not altering it in any way.
That's true. And then the garage variance that's being requested, can another door be installed there?
I would imagine so. Again, it's a question for the architect.
Okay, but I mean, the applicant is changing the zoning requirement for their benefit, not necessarily for the benefit of the ordinance.
The applicant is not changing the zoning requirement. The applicant is requesting a variance from the zoning requirement. Does not change the underlying zoning.
Yes, but there's no hardship to that, is there? Because they could install the door.
I
couldn't
did not testify to hardship. I did not testify that there was hardship.
they? Okay, so there is no hardship, is what you're saying.
There's
I'd
no
like to
hardship.
jump in. I'd like to
It
raise.
does
a-
not need to be.
They
Hold on.
were, they,
Wait a second.
Ms. Coffin testified under the C2 criteria. She did not say it was a hardship.
Okay, and
Thank you,
then
Ms. Bell.
under the C2 criteria, then it's a higher zoning standard, is it not?
It's a different standard.
Okay, and so that means any other applicant coming in can say it's a better standard, so I'm only going to put in one door.
I object to that. We all know that every application stands on its own facts. They're fact sensitive. And what another application or another applicant does is irrelevant for this application.
He can ask the question, you can answer it.
No, any other applicant can't come in and say someone else got one door, so I only get one door.
But you're testifying that it's a higher zoning standard.
No, those words came out of your mouth, sir, not mine.
Okay, and then in terms of the C2, the community must actually receive a benefit due to the fact the variance represents a better zoning alternative for the property. Could you describe to me what the benefit is that the community is getting?
Yes, the benefit in this case is the advancing of the purposes of the municipal land use law as I outlined in depth, as well as providing for the security for the resident of this building, who is also a member of the community.
Sure, but the benefit is only to them, is it not? There's no benefit to us that they have better safety, is it?
It's a benefit to everyone when someone has better safety.
Do you know how high the garage was that was originally demolished?
No,
Okay, so you're stating that under item C, the adequate light, air, and open space, but this building, you can't testify that the building is smaller than the one that was there, creating more air and light. Can
When
you?
I said it was light air and open space, I did specify that that was in regard to the setbacks, which were improved on both the rear and side yard.
And the height too?
I didn't say the height, no.
Oh, okay, so the height is not included.
I said that there was improvements to light air and open space by the building being moved farther from the side and rear yard lines.
Okay. Great, and then in item A, you said municipal action. What exactly does that mean? In terms
Mr.
of your-
Cohen, I know
yeah.
that you know enough about planning to know what municipal action is. It is action taken by this board, would fall as municipal action.
Is-
Zoning is municipal action. Master plan is municipal action. The planning board's decisions are municipal action.
Sure, so that's a municipal action against the ordinance that has been previously established by the borough itself.
That would be what a variance is.
Sure, okay, and
Excuse me 1 second, Mr. Wade, did you have
Yes.
something?
I thought there was a 5-minute time limit on questions. It's just not a cross-examination, is it? It's
It
court
is a
of law.
cross-examination. Yeah, it is, because, so,
It is?
yeah, Mr. Cohen is an objector. So in that role, he has the right to call witnesses and do cross-examination. And he's pro se.
Is it unlimited time limit on this too, Mark? He just goes and rambles on?
So he's a pro se, but he's dealt with just like he's an attorney. He plays by the same rules as an attorney would. And we laid that out as a ground rule. So he has the same rights to call witnesses or cross-examine witnesses as Mr. Stone does.
He just seems to ramble on to me. No point to nothing.
I mean, again, this is testimony he's making now.
Yeah. I don't agree with your rambling guy. I don't.
I object to this description of myself, sir.
All right, folks, let's try to move this along
Yeah,
because
just,
You know
we're not
what?
going to finish tonight.
Questions for
I'd
Ms.
like to
Cohen.
finish
Thank you.
next time. Mr. Cohen, please.
you have the floor.
No, sir, I'm not going to be badgered by board members any longer in this forum. I have no more questions for Ms. Coughlin. Thank you.
I
So-
want to respond to that. I
All right.
didn't find,
You can respond after I respond. No one is being, let the record reflect, you're not being badgered. I just advised the board member who had a question and I addressed it. You have the floor. No one's interrupting you. I clarified the record. You have the right to continue asking questions. If you decide that you don't want to ask any other questions, that's up to you. But let the record reflect that you're not being badgered. And
This is the second time this has happened from a board member, Mr. Kittrick, but I am going to continue then. Thank you, sir. Are the boards allowed to utilize their discretion to rewrite ordinances that do not suit the applicants?
No, they're allowed to grant variances.
Okay, great. And so those variances are based on the facts of the case, are they not?
They are.
Great. And the facts of the case are that it has been testified that there was a mistake or an error. Should an error be benefited by the granting of a variance?
objection, that's argumentative.
Mr.
And he
Kittredge?
can throw himself around all he wants. That's an argumentative with this witness. And
your objection is noted. The witness can answer the question.
The reason I didn't testify that there was hardship is that in this case, the hardship is self-created. So no, a variance should not be granted simply because a mistake was made. And that is why my testimony did not treat this as though it should be granted because a mistake was made. And I approached it as though this was a building that would be constructed.
Great. And so the variances are self-created as you just testified.
No, the hardship would have been self-created, which is why it cannot be used to justify the variances.
Great.
And that's
Okay.
why I gave the C2 testimony.
Mhm. That's perfect. And C1 doesn't apply because the land is not unusual in any way.
So I'm going to interject. Mr. Cohen.
Yes, sir.
Her testimony was for the granting of a C2 variance.
Okay,
And-
I've completed.
No, let me finish. And I don't think you're badgering me. You're just interrupting me. Her testimony was clearly for a C2 variance. We all heard that, and you keep asking and referencing the C1 standard. That's not what she testified to.
True.
So
She testified that the C1 doesn't apply.
I'm not finished. If you'd stop interrupting me, I'd appreciate it. Okay? Her testimony was for a C2 variance approval. Her testimony was not about granting a C1 variance. Everybody heard that. The record is clear, and you heard that, and you keep referencing the C1 standard. That was not her testimony. I suggest you ask questions on cross-examination as to what her testimony was.
Yes, sir, I believe I did. And I'm completed my questions. Thank you, Mr. Kittrick.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any, Mr. Kittrick, we're going to audience questions, correct?
That's correct, of the planner.
Mr. Chair, this is Jerry. If I could
Sure.
just jump
Go
in
ahead,
real
Mr.
quick
Frieda.
right here. The point that was brought up, the pool area is included in the impervious area. That was a question asked by Mr. Cohen. So just want to make sure that that's on the record.
Thank you, Mr.
Pool
Frieda.
area is included.
Thank you, Mr. Frieda. I appreciate that. And
You're welcome.
that leads me to my next question. Are you familiar with the SDL portal in the borough of Bradley Beach?
The
Wait a second.
SCL portal.
Is
Yes.
this
Not
to
quite-
Mr. Frieda or to Ms. Coffin?
To Mr. Frieda.
I'm not quite sure what you're talking about, so I'd have to say no.
The SDL portal is a.
You answered the question, it was
Okay,
no.
great. Okay, I'll follow up with that later. Thank you.
And I didn't know I was being a character witness in this, Mr. Kittrick is.
You're not.
Well, what is the purpose of that question?
Right.
Thank you.
It's, we only have one witness. It's Ms. Coffin.
That's correct. And we will now move to questions. We'll now move to questions from the public. Folks,
I
it's
have a
getting
question.
late. Please keep it respectful. Mr. Wright?
I have a question.
Who, I'm sorry, who?
Terrence Wright,
Guys,
406
minutes,
Madison
guys,
Avenue.
We're getting a lot of feedback here.
Mr.
Isn't
Wright,
it
do you
correct
have,
that every variance is
do you have
self-inflicted?
two devices?
No, I only have one device. I'm on a phone.
We're getting a lot of feedback.
That's
Yeah,
better.
my question is, isn't every variance self-inflicted?
Is your question in general to anyone who is asking a variance
Yeah,
as opposed to, I'm going to say no. There are some variances that are straight up hardship where you cannot use a piece of property because setbacks may completely overlap. In which
What about
case
the ones
there is a
tonight?
true hardship. The ones
what
tonight
about the ones tonight
would be,
specific to Dr.
yes.
Cutler?
Almost all C2 variances are, I would call self-inflicted. That's fair.
What
You're
about the other
requesting-
cases heard tonight?
I'm going to be honest, I wasn't paying all that much attention to them. So I couldn't say.
I mean, it just seems we're going around and around on these variances, and this has been argued and debated. I don't know why we can't just put it on the floor and get a motion to either go on or not.
Do you have any more questions for Ms. Coffin?
Not at this time.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the audience?
Get on and do that.
Please mute your lines if you are not asking a question. I don't see any questions from the audience.
Did somebody mute Mr. Wright's phone?
Thank you. Well, maybe it's not. All right.
There we go.
Mr. Stone.
Well, subject to the comment about trying to adjust the pervious coverage, that's the application. I rest my case.
All right, it is 10 o'clock. Mr. Kittrick, I would defer to you for a suggestion of how you'd like to proceed.
Well, let me, Mr. Cohen, how many witnesses do you have, Mr. Cohen? You're muted.
I have one witness, sir.
All right, so,
Go ahead.
no, finish.
I don't believe it's customary to continue with more witnesses after the 10 o'clock hour has been stated before.
Yeah.
I've opened my schedule for the December 1st meeting, and we're going to have a lot of public comment. I think it would be more appropriate for the December 1st meeting. If that meeting wasn't scheduled, I would try to continue, but it is getting to be a late hour.
So, since we have this December 1st meeting, and we have to have, there's Mr. Cohen's planner, there'll be direct and there'll be cross-examination. And then there's the public questioning, and then we're gonna have public comment. So it's now after 10 o'clock. I mean, my suggestion, since there's a notice for the next meeting, and there's no way we're going to finish tonight regardless that we resume on December 1st. That would be my suggestion, but.
May I, not that I object to that, but may I ask a question?
Certainly.
Is the board's policy that you do not start a new witness after 10 o'clock? I thought it was 10:30.
Testimony.
What'd you say, 10 o'clock?
Yeah, it was 10 o'clock. It was, that was read at the start of this meeting tonight.
All right. Well, then I have no objection about carrying it to the meeting of the 1st. But then I would withdraw my closing of my application so that I will have an opportunity to review my notes to make sure that I won't have anything else to add.
Certainly.
If we could start with that, that would be great at the next meeting, Mr. Kittrick.
Start with what Mr. Stone just suggested? Is that what
Yes.
you mean? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, sure.
Thank you.
That makes sense.
And Mr. Stone, could you could the engineers work together to possibly deal with this impervious question? And
I've already sent a message to Mr. Murphy, and I would ask him to communicate with Mr. Frieda and whatever they can take away from the property, because my client has already agreed that he would try to do that.
Perfect, because I'd like to get that on paper, what the plan would be, so that then we know what we're doing going forward on that issue. I think most of the other issues have been distilled so that the board can effectively understand what we will be voting on. That seems to be the last issue. Obviously, Mr. Cohen has his planner, and we will hear that testimony also. Mr. Cohen, you're muted.
May I ask another question?
Sure, hang on. Mr. Cohen had his hand up first, but he's muted.
Oh, he's muted.
Still on.
There you go.
I just want to make sure that we're very concise at the next meeting. And in Mr. Frieda's letter, the most recent revision, item number 4, the applicant indicates that there'll be 2 internal parking spaces. We recommend the applicant revise the plans to include 2 garage doors, but I haven't heard any testimony in terms of the radiuses and the ability for those cars to really park. There's been no diagram submitted, and that should be much more concise testimony at the next meeting.
Well, that's, Mr. Stone presents the case that Mr. Stone's going to present, so,
Okay.
Can I say something, please? 1 moment.
Certainly, Ms. Brunel.
Actually, I would think under New Jersey law, a motorcycle counts as a vehicle, a golf cart counts as a vehicle. So in all fairness, a car and a motorcycle would fit in that garage as it exists.
All right, I don't mean to cut you off, but let's try to keep this last piece here into the organization of what we want to do at our next meeting, because I feel like we owe this to the applicant as well as to the population surrounding the applicant to get this issue resolved and moved forward, however we decide to do that.
Mr. Fuso, am I correct that the next meeting on the 1st will start at 6:30 and continue to conclusion?
Ms. Dickert, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
That's it.
You're the only show.
I've been called that before.
Right.
Okay, so Mr. Cohen, are you satisfied with the plan moving forward?
Yes, sir.
Yes? Okay. Mr. Stone, are you satisfied with the plan moving forward?
Of course.
Mr. Kittrick, are we good?
We are good. So
Members of the board?
December, just so if we could just announce to everybody that the next meeting is a special meeting for this application and this application only. December 1st, which is a Tuesday, correct, Christie?
Yes.
At 6:30 via Zoom. Okay?
Is that acceptable to all the board members?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. All right. Well, folks, thank you. Thank you for coming. Please all be safe. Have a very happy Thanksgiving to the best of your ability.
Happy Thanksgiving.
And I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Have a happy Thanksgiving. Be safe, be healthy.
Night, everyone.
Be safe. See you December 1st.
Good night. Thank you, Chris.
Night.
Good night.